Hello and welcome to your favorite Stat Check podcast, host's favorite Stat Check podcast. It is time for episode 25 of Take All Comers. We have Pyra at home, West Coast Warbands 2025. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Bortel, and I am joined by
Lukas Troller and the
your
illustrious
other hosts. Yeah, Nicholas Olson Johnson.
And today is, I don't even want to call it daytime yet. Today is the night of all nights because we are back and we are ready to break down the hottest Teams 40K event that happened on whatever day this was, the 22nd of April, that isn't in Poland. We got a fives event up in the Pacific Northwest and it was spicy. We are joined today by not one, not two, not three, but four very special guests. We're all here to break down the performance of this year's Rose City Ruffians performance at West Coast Warbands 2025. And we're super excited to get into a crazy team event with a whole bunch of ups and downs and show you what a local teams event looks like now that you've seen it on the global scale. Give you some ideas about how to be prepping for one and how to be involved at any level, regardless of your teams or singles background as a player. But before we jump into any of that good stuff, I got to check in with the boys today. How we doing today, Lukas?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's Sunday evening, just the regular time you have your podcast, but feeling pretty good. Super fun to get to revisit this awesome tournament that we all went to and just relive some of the best moments with the boys. So I'm very much looking forward to this episode, and I'm excited to get started. How you doing, Mr. Nick?
Dude, I'm doing great. I am very excited to talk about this. I got to play Votan at this event in a surprise last-minute switcheroo, and I had an absolute blast. Outside of that, I've been playing a fuckload of Monster Hunter, dude. That new game rocks. But I'm excited to kind of refocus on Warhammer. We got another teams event coming up in May that I'll be, I guess, captaining because Lukas will be busy recovering from his travels abroad. So it's kind of like recap this one, on to the next. So very excited. How about Tyler, dude?
Tyler?
Yeah, how's Tyler doing up there with his
I'm alive.
5 a.m. over in Spain, dude?
Yeah, so what is it? 17/8. So at 9 p.m. over there Sunday night, which seemed like a somewhat reasonable thing to do because y'all need to get everyone on the show here. And that when I agreed to that was going to be 6 a.m. over here. But apparently daylight savings time happens in the U.S. a month before it does in Europe. So it's 9 p.m. for y'all and it's 5 a.m. Over here. I have nothing but regret, but this should be a good time. Looking forward to hearing about this event. We are joined by some wonderful guests here who I will introduce. We've got three other players. This is a fives event and one wonderful coach. All three of you guys have been on the show before? You were all here on the Champs Cup? No. Tanner's been on for other stuff. Yeah, okay. Everyone's been on the show before, so you might know some of these people. Other than Chris. I think Chris has been on the show. But quick background of introduction. We've got, from our Challengers Cup, Champs Cup episode, you may remember, Mr. Alex Pena. He was our T-Suns player that time around. Alex, say hi to the children back at home.
He was not. He was playing.
Hello.
I'm. Oh, Jesus Christ!
What's up? Hello,
yeah, great.
Alex again, and Mr. Schwartzer down there. Let's go. Still on his guard.
Yeah.
Say hi, Max.
Hi.
Hell yeah! And unfortunately, not able to join us at Champions Cup this year, but you've seen him around for his Death Guard escapades. I believe his background though would suggest that he has fallen to the communists. Welcome in, Mr. Tanner Rivera.
Hello. I'm back.
Wonderful. And newcomer to the show, but not newcomer to our hearts. It's the beloved Chris Pena. Not to be confused with Alex, though they may look a good bit alike right now with the style and whatnot.
Definitely done not just a recorded audio of Alex did an hour ago. But hi, happy to be here.
Fantastic. So this event took place a couple of weeks back. We get a bit of a rundown, Nick. What the hell was going on here?
Yeah, what's up? So West Coast Warbands was the first 5-man teams event put on by our buddy John and his group Straight Silver Gaming. It was also ran by our buddy Alex Henderson and Duck for Cover Gaming. He has been putting in a lot of work making these WTC custom boards, which were fantastic. They were debuted at the event, and yeah, it was great. We had a total of 16 teams there, I believe, 5-people teams each. And I mean, 3 of the tables were what, WTC each round, 2 were GW each round. So Alex like pumped out a bunch of WTC over the course leading up to this event, and I mean they're planning on putting on more 5-man events over the course of this year. So we are very much looking forward to that. This event was 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, February, I believe, 22nd and 23rd. And it was a total of 2 rounds each day, which was pretty nice, a nice pace. We were given 4 hours for each round as well. So for like pairings and, slightly longer setup required. And that was pretty much it. I believe like tiebreakers wise, because we usually go over that. It was total game wins. And then, or it was match points, like win, loss, draw, that sort of thing. Then it was game wins, battle points, and match point strength of schedule, which when we get to talking about the event, those tiebreakers are going to be coming up. They're going to be pretty important. But yeah, that is our breakdown of West Coast Warbands, the first ever.
As is typical for team events, right? Like ties are a very big thing. For those of you who have paid attention to teams events, knowing what your tiebreakers are and knowing how to either avoid them or to plan accordingly is a big part of the strategy, because ties are very common, as we will see throughout this event.
Yeah, I know Lukas, had a hand in helping make the packet for this event. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process, or about like how the tiebreakers
Sure,
work?
Just a little bit. Yeah, I actually didn't really decide how the ties were going to work. John came up to me during my round 1 event to figure that out, which was funny. But yeah, in the fall of last year, I did some work on the packet for this. So kind of the mission progress, except for Purge the Foe. Fuck that mission. And the layouts that we used were all at least somewhat my doing. So yeah, I just tried to choose some of the more common rounds that we play at teams. So like we played a tipping point, hammer and anvil linchpin, and we played take and hold crucible. So just like some nice staple missions. We played a search and destroy as well. I think that one was Scorched Earth, which I know is one of Tyler's favorite missions, Scorched Earth on search and destroy. So yeah, it was pretty fun. I've never really designed a mission pack before, so it was cool to kind of do that process a little bit. And also to select some tables that were, I'm very used to just headhunting the tables that are best for me, but to look at it holistically and think, what table are these tables reasonable for a well-balanced round? And hopefully y'all think I did a good job of that. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's pivot now from the top down to the smaller top down. Lukas, you've been in a lot of leadership positions since we were co-captaining last year at Champions Cup, and you've been running teams nights and stuff. Is this your first time running a full team at a teams event and on your own? How was that process like? And how did you end up with these 5 wonderful gentlemen sitting around me here?
Yeah, so I mean, we cohered on our 5-man team pretty darn quick. We kind of wanted to build the heavy hitter comp from Portland, and we did steal the best player in Washington, in my humble opinion. So yeah, we wanted to build kind of the homie squad that would hit the hardest. So the people on the team were never really in doubt for me, although obviously I'd be happy to work and be teammates with any of the other folks from Portland or the nearby area. But yeah, so we know the 5 people that we wanted on the team, but our journey to arrive at the armies that we played was actually a little bit rocky. We started off with roles, basically. We knew that we wanted, in a 5-man, there's a lot more volatility than 8, obviously. If one game goes wrong, things can go very south. Similarly, if one game goes very well, things can all of a sudden, no one else really has that much onus to do too much. They just kind of need to tie their games. that's just kind of how 5 works. It's a little bit more volatile. So with that in mind, we really tried to focus in on like 1 to 2 hunter lists that could go and just get big dubs while everyone else maybe held the line. This kind of strategy is something that we already used at Champs Cup, so it was familiar to a lot of the people on our roster. And as well, one of the strategies that we also used at Champs Cup was we have these 5 to 6 blunting people in our comp. It was like 3 people who are just dedicated blunters. Every once in a while, one of those people is going to get to feast. And when they do, they can like supplement and also come back with a big win so that not both of the hunters are expected to always perform all of the time. But like I was saying, the list that we were running in with this paradigm kind of fluctuated a lot over time. We did have the Rose City Rampage event, which we recapped with John Siebert at the end of January. And that was a great testing ground for, I think all of us were there. We were all playing our original lists in the comp. And just to recap those, I was playing Tactical. Pina, you were playing Deathwatch, actually, so that was not in our original comp. Nick, you were playing Warpbane Grey Knights. Mm-hmm. Tanner, you weren't playing at the event, but you would have been playing Stolar Spearhead Custodes. That was your original setup. And then Max was playing Gladius Ultras. And then the plan was to have Pina play Renegade Raiders. So this is a very elite comp, right? We've got like 4 power armor armies that have a lot of volatility in their game plan. So what was your guys' experience, in that initial comp? You guys can each go, like, in your practice games, what was going well and what wasn't, and why did we ultimately decide to not run each of those lists? Because none of the 4 of you played any of those lists.
I can speak to 2 of us. Solar Spearhead was really cool, and I found that it was like a fun list to play that was pretty strong. But Nick and I play a lot of our test games together, and he was also playing Warpbane, which we thought those comments also applied to Warpbane. And then after we tested into a variety of things, we kept finding our losses came from our like 6 robot armies rolling 3 too few 4-up saves on a critical turn, and just being pretty out of our hands. And we're like, well, if the strength of these is we have a bunch of these big tough robots, but if we're losing games on like 3 dice every loss, that doesn't feel very controllable. Maybe these 6 robot lists aren't it. They're not very stable when we already have like the volatility of a 5-man's team matrix. It was really hard to commit to our pairings. So yeah, Solar's really good though. It was a cool army. It was really fun.
And another thing for me that I kind of like talked about a bit in the Rose City Rampage episode was just kind of like coming back in the game a bit more and being like, oh, this game is like super go second favored right now, it feels like. And GK being an army that really wants to go second because they're an uppy downy army, and that being super difficult to matrix, right? It just being another thing that's like, yeah, this matchup's a green. Oh, I went second on this mission on this board. Actually, it's a red. And that just felt like a super bad thing to have from an army that's supposed to have a stable points floor, and being like, it's anywhere between an 8 to a 12, and we don't know until we've paired and rolled the first dice. So for matrixing and like pairing, it was kind of just like a bit of a red flag. We needed something a little more stable.
Yeah. And in our first couple talks, it was very challenging to kind of thread that needle of you guys were wanting to, you guys were in this blunting role where we kind of needed to throw basically anything at you, and you guys get 8 to 12 points. And there were all these uncontrollables. And that's just kind of a bad recipe. Those things do not really mix. So that was why you all switched over. Alex, could you talk a little bit about your Renegade Raiders journey /bio?
Yeah, exactly. So, so as you guys know, if you watch, I was playing T-Sons or Sisters at Champs Cup. Originally T-Sons, and then we had to do a last minute boogie into Sisters. And that kind of started the journey of me trying to really hone in on playing aggressively, kind of aggressive army, trying to hunt for points, as it were. And we kind of talked about that in the list comp. We had a conversation where it's like, how do I best get points? And so when I saw the bio list or the detachment get released, I thought that's really cool. Looks like a fun way to get a bunch of points, but in testing, something just really wasn't clicking for me. I kept changing with the list and testing into different games, and it just really didn't gel. And so I went with Renegade Raiders because it's like very similar to what I was testing with Bringers. You have tanks, you've got some counter punch, and that was decent. And I was not enjoying it super because I never really super enjoyed the Bringers of Flame, throw tanks at people, roll good and then they die. And then kind of from a singles perspective, I was playing Deathwatch because I had been collecting the army for a while and then they deleted them. And then they gave us really cool rules and then they won LVO, which is a very, exciting month and a half to be a Deathwatch player. So I took it to the GT to see if maybe this had legs or something like that, if I could gel with that.
And how about you, Max? What was the transition like moving from, because you were playing a lot of Gladius over
Yeah, it was
December
fun. I
and
mean,
January.
Gilliman got a nice buff, Oath got really strong, but I mean, I think Marines are honestly just a better hunter role than blunter role. Like, they want those good matchups where they can just slap their opponent hard and score, and that really wasn't the role that I liked or am comfortable with. And Guard are just, in my opinion, Guard are the best blunting army in the game, and I enjoy playing them a lot. They're a great teams army, and so just going back to them was like really, really an easy decision, I think.
Yeah, it was kind of the perfect storm for you two in particular, because we realized that Alex wasn't able to hunt as well as he could with CSM, and then he smashed at Rose City Rampage with Deathwatch, and then you're like, I don't know if Gladius is really the blunter that we need. I'm like, this seems like a perfect switch. So y'all, I think I'm glad that worked out as efficiently as you did. And then, so for Tanner and Nick, you guys we're moving from these elite robot armies to something new. Could you guys talk about the pin that you guys are trying to put together?
Yeah, we just totally inverted the dynamics of the two lists. So we were like, this isn't a lot of stuff and it wants to go second. What if we played list with the most stuff we could possibly take that want to go first? And then if we go second, we have all the stuff. And if we go first, we can play lists that are like 8th edition alpha armies. So we played Montcon, Votan. And those are also armies we've played a bunch. Like Nick's played a ton of Votan. I've been yelling about how good Montcon is forever. All of the local Tau players know.
Yep, I don't have much more to say. We, just kind of wanted armies that didn't really care if they went first or second. Also, we actually kind of wanted armies that could punish people if they went first. That was a big thing that didn't work with some armies out there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that also made sense. Like that, we were concerned about especially after we'd played so much Warpbane. We were like, boy, it would really suck to just slowly lose to GK every round. Right, we knew it was on some of the teams we were worried about. There are a lot of sit around and score armies that want to go second, and having something that could actually pressure those armies. Like, it felt like a tough meta to take a honest man's mixed arms into and just try and play 5 turns into an army that's built to really hide and go second. So yeah, I think it made sense.
Both Votan and Monko are very much if you deployed incorrectly or if you deploy trying to go first and I go first, it's like bummer, dude.
Yep.
You're getting shot by something turn 1.
Both of those armies, I feel like, really lead into any of our blunters could come back with a big score, right? Like, they have the floor, but they also have the high ceiling. So that's what I really liked about Monka and Votan. And Guard is a little bit less so. They don't have as much pushing ability, but they're also just so stable with the amount of OC you can bring and units, which, Monka in particular is a little bit less of. But yeah, I feel like those 3 were very solid. So let's see. Should we just all go through and then give a quick 30 second overview of what we took? I think that'd be good for everyone listening. So I ended up playing tactical. Go ahead, Tyler.
Before you get into that, I do want to, just to situate us in time here, there is a balanced data slate coming out this week. It's currently March 9th or 10th, depending on who you ask, 2025. This event comes before the slate. It also comes before Eldar and before Guard. So we're 2 metas ago. If you need to recalibrate your brain for that. So Max is playing with the Index Guard. There is no Eldar that needs to be hunted in this event. That's why they're not here. Obviously, those armies are really good. We've talked about them a lot. We'll talk about them more in the future. But going back in, what are we taking, Lucas?
Yeah. So I'm playing Tactical Brigade. It's the same list, more or less, that I ran at Rose City Rampage. So it's 2 led squads of Beast Naga Boys. It's 2 squads of unled Breaker Boys. 2 squads of SAG-led tank busters. We have the mech captain SAG leading 10 flash kits, along with 5 more flash kits, and then a whole smorgasbord of trash. So 2 units of Storm Boys, 5 trucks, Sodgrad leading 10 Gretchen, and then just a bunch of other garbage. What about you, Mr. Pina?
Mark Hertel LVO. No, I'm kidding, but I'm not. It is 15 vets led by a Judicar or a watch captain, lone op lieutenant because we're playing Space Marines, Gravis captain for free strats. Then I've got a talent strike with bolters, a Indominator with what you think it is, 2 Terminators with the Cyclones, 2 Rhinos, Thunderstrike, and I think that's it.
Mr. Max, go ahead.
Ran a list very similar to what I ran at Champs Cup, but this was post Bulgren nerf, so those guys came out. We shoved some Hellhounds in instead, and I took out the Ignore LOS just to add another Tarox and Catagen squad, because more trash good with guard. Yeah, but Double Dorns is the core there. They shoot good. They do the thing. You got the little Leontis Berg to scream orders and give you CP, and it's the same formula with Index Guard that we've been using for a lot of the edition, and it's not broken, so I didn't need to change anything really. And now Codex Guard come out, and it'll be more fun and better and scarier. Over to you, Tanner.
Boy, I was playing Monka, so I was playing double Breacher Fish, double Riptide, Hammerhead, a Sky Ray, an Ion Head, a Ghost Keel, an Ethereal and Disc, 2 Crudox, triple Stealth Suit, double Piranha? Yeah, I think that's right. So, like, I like to build lists in singles that's 2 of everything, but I had to take some units that were, like, specifically for teams, like the Ghost Keel. And that guy sucks. I don't know. He was really good in teams. It was really boring to play. I took 2 Crudox, which I thought was really cool. And I found out, I thought I was really smart for that tech, but there was an even better tech available because the Ethereal and Disc can now guide. And I should have played 2 Ethereal and Disc, 1 Crudox, and instead of 1 Ethereal and Disc, 2 Crudox. So there was a smarter Tau player who played it the week before, and I would have taken his list, but it was after list lock. Yeah, it's really fast. It's got like 10 Seeker missiles. You have to rely on Riptides, which sucks. I'll talk about it. I don't know. Yep, that's Monka. It's still just as good as it was before.
Yep. And then I was playing Votan. I was playing the core of the list was basically 5 Sagittars and 1 Hecatonk. We were worried that 2 would be a little bit difficult to hide / stage on, especially some of these GW boards. A lot of like the boards, it's like there's these long firing angles, or it's like you put a Hecaton there and the other one just kind of sits a million miles away from the action. Or it's really easy for someone with like a long shooting thing, especially like advance and shoot, to like come over and get an angle and pop it. So I was playing 5 Sagittars, Hecaton, 2x10 Hearthkin Warriors, a squad of 10 Zerkers to ride in the Hecaton, because that's like pretty mandatory for every Hecaton you run, in my opinion. 2x5 Zerkers, and then character-wise, we had a champ who could either ride in the Hecaton with the Zerkers or like just screen somewhere. And then we had Uthar, who could lead a squad of Hearthkin. And then we had 2 squads of 6 bikes and 1 squad of 10 Jaegers. So yeah, it was just kind of a list that like was designed to have a lot of the ability to keep flipping opponent's primary with like putting 3 Sagittars near it, or like 2 Sagittars and a Hecaton. And then just really good ability to like lock down your own primary by being like, I'm going to put a bunch of OC on it. If you pop this car, OC10 gets out behind a wall, you know? And then if you like aggress onto the objective, you're getting charged by Zerkers and shot by bikes. So that was kind of the list design, was just keep that stable points floor, keep denying opponents primary, make sure the only way they ever get primary is their home field, and like if they go second, end a game primary. So yeah.
Nice. So a couple things to note about the comp, and this is very conducive to the train format we were playing, right? We were playing on 3 WTC, 2 GW, and I was expecting a lot of like mixed comps with like shooting heavy and then some melee heavy, and those captains of those comps would try to get their melee onto the WTC tables, and they try to get their shooting onto the GW tables. Our comp has 5 heavy shooting lists, right? Like your defender picking a GW table isn't that scary for us because our comp will shoot them back just as hard. So that was one key defense to our comp that I think ended up working out really well. Another key defense is well, actually, I'll mention that while we go over the matrices. But I think that was like a very key part of our strategy that worked out really well for us. So in general, the way pairings went, which actually, again, that'll occur during the round. So any questions before we get going, Tyler, or should we hop straight into round number 1?
I'm just like on a numbers game here. I'm surprised that if you're telling me there's 3 melee tables and 2 shooting, that you went all shooting instead of all melee. How much like prep are you guys doing on WTC tables going into this? Like I know that Lukas is getting. I see how much reps Lukas is getting in on it. Were you guys putting in dedicated iterative practice on these WTC boards, or was it just like they're dense tables? You'll figure it out when you get there.
I can speak first. I was basically start of the year, maybe even start of around Christmas time. We kind of created 2 games at least a week on WTC. There has been this advent of a great TTS kind of quality of life upgrade. And so it's never been easier to just plug and play what terrain format you want. So I think all of us have just kind of, once we saw the terrain pack that was dropped, we just started jamming WTC because we've played a million GW terrain games. So it was really interesting. I feel like I never have enough WTC practice because there's so many different tables. But
I know I at least deployed my army on every board. I played all of my practice on WTC, barring like 1 to make sure it didn't was totally non-functional in GW. But I definitely went in TTS and put my list on every map and mission that you could end up on to make sure I understood how all the firing angles worked and like where can you put breachers out. So I think we did a decent amount of terrain specific prep.
I got
Nice.
high and went off vibes.
Nice. Hey, yeah, I know
Cool.
Tanner and I think every game we played, we might have played like 20, 25 practice games, maybe a little more. We played a lot. And yeah, I think we played like every time we met up on a weekend, it was like, let's play 3 games right now on like WTC.
Sweet. And the other question I had, do you guys have one of these 5? It sounds like the general plan is Lukas is hunting, the rest of you are blunting. Who do you guys have a somewhat dedicated first defender in mind?
Yeah. So the way that worked, and we'll get into matrices basically right away so we can see this in action, but we almost always would throw forward one of our just like a shock absorber type list immediately. This was basically Nick, Tanner, or Max every single time, right? And if they were offered melee, they would just grab a GW table and get a 12. If they were offered a shooting mirror, they would just take whatever table looks best and get a 10. And then from there, usually the way that worked out, we decided on that who that first person was, by the way, by looking at who was not necessary to attack with, right? So if we're looking at who we need to attack with, and I'm seeing a lot of Tanner and Max, Nick's going to go forward first. If we're looking at who needs to attack, and I'm seeing a lot of Max and Nick, Tanner's going out first. So that was kind of the general idea. And then from there, it was really, once we got down to the 3 versus 3 scrum, it was really who can grab a guaranteed good matchup. Hopefully it's or how can we avoid a very scary matchup? So very often we'd get down to a 3v3 where it's like, if we defend with this person, we might only get 1 good matchup, but we'd guarantee avoid like a super hard flip. There was a lot of super big flips because we played into a lot of world eaters and like Chaos Knights, other very aggressive armies that are like kind of shooting hole comps we're very scared of. So there were a lot of flips in there, but we could avoid those in the 3v3 scrum by defending with that person with the scary matchup, so they could always guarantee they don't pick it. So that's kind of the general strategy.
Sweet. Well, let's get right into it then. Round 1, looks like y'all are going up against Underwhelming Force.
Top
Correct.
dogs.
The Glizzy
The
team.
A-team, I see.
Yeah.
How did this go?
Do we want to throw up the matrix?
Yeah, sure. There we go. Let's go. Okay, so here's our 5v5. If you haven't seen our coloring scheme before, a purple is a tie, and then as it gets, a green is a good matchup, a blue is an excellent matchup. Oranges are bad matchups, reds are terrible matchups, And then the further toward black it goes, the flippier, more volatile the game is. So I've got a moderately volatile game into World Leaders. Tanner has an extremely volatile game into World Leaders. So a couple things to note about this matrix, and other people can chime in as they see fit. This looks like a wall of green, and there is more green than orange, that's for sure. One of the things that makes me a little nervous is how much of our green is tied up in me, because although there is 4 greens in that row, I'm only going to play one of them, right? So 3 of those greens are basically non-existent, and guard and world leaders are very scary for us. You'll see this in later rounds, but if we can navigate that world leaders, which some people are terrified of, but some people really want to play, if we can get that good matchup into world leaders, we're going to be very set. So with that in mind, I wanted to keep around people that could pin world leaders so that if world leaders came down as a first defender, we had our answer. So with that in mind, I could not attack with Nick and I could not attack with Alex. So going off of that first defender strategy that I was talking about, right, we want to keep attackers around to go into the people we're scared of. Similarly, guard is something they could first defend with. And if we see that come down, we need to throw down Tau and Orcs as a response. So with this in mind, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I'm pretty sure we defended with Max.
That was correct.
Okay. So the rationale here, again, being that we just have to have those attackers in place. Max will also greatly benefit from his table choice, depending on who he plays against, right? If he plays against, has to play against world leaders or is playing against AdMech, right? He can grab that open board and just shell the shit out of them. And then otherwise, he can pretty much get a tie into anyone else here that's not world leaders. So we defend with Max, and he accepts a Tau attacker, and they defend with, was it Grey Knights? It was Grey Knights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then we're basically going to attack their Grey Knights with people that aren't as useful to us later on. So I'm pretty sure we threw Tanner forward because he just has some scary ass matchups. I want to get them out of there, right? Tanner's our one person who does not want to play into AdMech. I definitely don't want to end up at that orange, and he really doesn't want to play into World Leader, so he's a great person to get a tie into Grey Knights here. I think we also send forward Votan, and they reject it. So
I think they sent forward you. I think
it was you and me.
Yeah, because you wanted to hold me and Alex for the World Leader pin. We
That's
were more
correct.
scared of that.
That makes sense.
Especially because we knew guard was going away, so we didn't need to get rid of Alex or myself.
Yep. Fair point.
Or
Yep.
no, we didn't. Sorry, they were defending with Grey Knights. My bad. You wanted to preserve the World Leaders pin. Yeah.
Yep. And Daniel's a grade A bitch and refuses me, so he's playing against Tau. And our guard is playing against Tau as well. So the patented Tau attackers in the first round. Yeah, you see that every day. And then at this point, I wish we could condense this, but I wasn't that prescient. Didn't think that far ahead. But we've got Orcs and Deathwatch and Votan still in our matrix. So we still have a lot of green, provided we can dodge the one bad world leader. The one bad world leader matchup. So with that in mind, we basically, I think we defend with me here, which we do in a later round as well, to guarantee that I don't play into world leaders, and then I end up playing into guard, and we just get a kind of slew of green matchups here with Tanner playing the one tie.
Yeah, because they defended with AdMech second round, right?
I believe that's right.
Yeah. And we threw Deathwatch and Votan at them.
Yep. So we knew by defending with me in that second round, we knew that world leaders, because guard and Tau were gone, we knew that world leaders was going to have to play in a good matchup, which was what we wanted from the beginning. That was our strategy overall. Play around world leaders, keep rejecting them until that later round. Hopefully we've gotten rid of some scary matchups, and then we get that green into world leaders, and all of a sudden this is totally fine. So yeah, who is talking about their games in round one?
I know I was going to.
Yeah, Nick, do you want to start?
I can. Yeah. Was there anyone else talking about this round, or was it just Tanner and I? No one else. All right, cool. So I got to play into I was Votan. I got to play into AdMech. So this one was pretty interesting. So I think Shane was the only AdMech player there, and he was playing Halo Screed. And this was a list that Tanner and I were a bit spooked about because we saw the potential and the ability to just sprint across the board and tag all of our holes, and then we were just locked on our side of the board. The mission was also Hammer and Anvil Linchpin. So this was one where I kind of thought it was a bit flippy because I was like, the infiltrator roll off is huge. Because if like I get my Jaeger screen, we're good. If he gets his infiltrator screen, we're fucking terrified, and we have to like deploy guys outside of the fort so we can heroic these things. Another thing too is like Tyler was telling me, because he's been playing a lot of AdMech, about how fast these Rust Stalkers are. They can go like, I think it's like average 24-inch charge range in Halo Screed or something. And so like Shane just puts them in the boats, and like they can like keep launching across the board and tagging my stuff over and over and keeping like a wall, so it's really hard for me to flip them off primary. Lukas was like, dude, you are going to obliterate anything you look at in this. I think it's a green. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, maybe you convince me. This game, I won the infiltrator roll-off, which was pretty big. Managed to put my Jaegers in such a way that like blocked out a good spot for his infiltrators. I did end up going second, which was also huge because, right, I get the infiltrator roll-off. He doesn't get to really jail me turn one. And also I'm getting that end of game primary. So it's the like onus is on him to pressure me as hard as possible right now. He didn't really understand the matchup either, I think. He comes out very passive. He stages some like Rust Stalker boats very aggressively for like a turn 2. Okay, cool. I kind of send a little bit of stuff out, do some secondaries. I'm trying to like create screens, but make it so like if he does charge something, he's not able to tag a bunch of stuff off of one unit. He doesn't really respond aggressively turn 2. Interesting. But he does deny on my primary because he has a gazillion units hiding behind walls, and I only put like a car on 2 objectives. At this point, I'm like, well, I could see myself squeaking out like an 11 or 12, but like I kind of need to force him to bring more of these units out so he's not just scoring every secondary and I'm not just scoring every secondary, and it comes down to, oh, I get 15 at the end. Yip, like yip, you do, you know? And so I kind of start going like pretty aggressive, and I'm like, I'm just gonna like start just like tagging your shooting units and like trying to touch your boats. So like when you do disembark, you're huge. Like the Rust Stalkers are huge. That unit is like, a bunch of 40s. So it's like if I tag your boat here, you're only getting out the back, and now you're not really coming aggressively to flip things, and now you're having to send other units in. So I send in like some Zerkers, I tag some stuff, I like send like Sagittars on like charging missions, that sort of thing. And I'm like, I don't know if you can kill enough of my army quickly enough at this point, because you only have like 3 rounds, and like you're gonna come out, kill some things, but then my 12 bikes are gonna walk out and unload on whatever they see. And that's basically how the rest of the game goes. He does a really good job at denying my primary. I think he holds me to like 3, 8, 3, and then I get 15 at the end. But because I'm forcing him to send a bunch of units forward, he's having to make decisions of like, do they go here to do the secondary, or do they come forward to like deny this primary / like stop me from getting jailed in my DZ? So I think the game ends up being a 15-5 for me, which I was pretty surprised about. But I think a lot of that comes down to he didn't really know how the matchup was going to go, so he was playing a bit like too defensive at the beginning. But yeah, it was a fun round. Good game to Shane, dude. And I look forward to the next one.
I'm glad you did it, because that was such a scary list for me to look at. I played Daniel Minlin, and he was playing the GK list that we didn't respect, the one with no 15 purgators. And so Nick and I had played like a game or two into the purgs, and then we'd put Minlin's list once we got the round 1 pairings in TTS, and we both decided that if you just shove on this list, it's really hard for him to dig out. I did have to go first into this, which like I got rewarded for playing Montka, which was cool because I didn't go first in any of my other games, and which was big sad. So I got this one glorious like wake up in the morning, I'm still kind of sober, I get to like try hard for 30-40 minutes, and I shoved on this man much harder. Usually my Montka experience is I shove on someone harder than they've been shoved on in a long time, and I did this to this man. He made a huge mistake at deployment. He put 3 of the NDKs in the sky. And when he did that in deployment, I like literally deployed my whole army on the line. I said, you can't hurt it. I'm going to be over there right away. I charged a Rhino with Pathfinders turn 1. I was like pushing Piranhas back to his backboard edge turn 2 and forcing overwatches so he could at least have some of his own DZ to land in. I had a Riptide be a hero this game. I'm not going to go through all of the particular steps because it will validate Menlin too much to have the story shared, but I did have a Riptide overperform. And I'm trying to remember if there's any like really notable moments. He'd been talking about how cool his Tech Marine was, and we both thought that was really cool. We thought like this guy is an awesome little solo unit. Certainly he's going to be cleaning up all my stupid Tau trash. So the first turn, he charges one of my prawns with this Tech Marine. We're both like really pumped for this to watch one Tech Marine do 7 mortal wounds. This Tech Marine did like 3 damage, and then we'd like run out of attacks. I'm like, all right, that was pretty cool, I guess. And then he didn't do anything else for the rest of the game. So I hope that guy's Tech Marine did better the rest of the tournament. It looked like he was going to be a hero. That's about it. I kind of play primary denial always. It's like a habit that I have to try and avoid sometimes because it's my default game plan. But in this one, I think I pulled up the game here. I kept him to like, 19 primary total. When 13 of that came on bottom 5. There's no world where I wasn't going to be effectively tabled by the end of the game, but I was like, as long as you never stand on an objective, it doesn't really matter. And so I just sold all my units. It was great. Yep, that was cool. It was a good round. It's nice to have the practice rewarded right out of the gate.
Hell yeah. Good work, man. Anyone else want to talk about their game?
I'll talk for a little bit. Deathwatch absolutely loves 3 wound idiots. It shoots them really hard and they die really fast. Thunderhammers are also extremely funny. World Leaders is a really good matchup, which as we find out, like I kind of just keep getting fed World Leaders in these hypotheticals. My 4 rounds were extremely wacky. We'll go through them. He has table choice, which was extremely scary, but Judicarb hiding behind a wall is just really hard for 8-bound to charge. And that kind of just helped. So I couldn't push as hard, but it's still just not a good matchup for World Leaders. And Ty is a G. Love Ty. Yeah, great opponent.
Yeah. I think too for that, you guys were the forgotten or like refused or whatever that's called in 5s. So at that point we did not get first table choice. We lost every roll off for first table choice, but that means we got to pick table 2 and 3, I believe. So at that point we were really trying hard to pull out the World Leader favored maps. So by the time it got to you guys, I think the map you got was like not that great for him. It was shooting gallery, but it wasn't like the really, really good one that I think Tanner ended up. I think Daniel picked it for Tanner or something.
Yeah, it was layout 8 for GW, which is like I couldn't get into the back half, but I mean, thank God for vets.
Nice. Very cool. All right, looks like overall you boys is pick up 4 wins and a draw at a 70-30. Way to set the tone right on the event, boys. Looking like a good one.
Just one quick note before I move on, because I know there's some people watching who are not hearing about their games. Just in the interest of time, we're not going to talk about all 20 games that we played because that's going to take too long. I've asked everyone to pick 1 or 2 games that they really want to deep dive. And then if anyone else wants to have like a couple quick seconds about their game, like Alex just did, that's great. But just in the interest of time, we're not going to deep dive all 20 games. That's how that's going to work.
Sweet. And that brings us over to round 2, the final round of day 1, where it looks like y'all are going up against the local boys, the Ordo Fanaticus gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Fanatics.
The Fanatics. Tell me a little bit about this pairing process.
Yeah, for what it's worth, we did neglect to mention that first round was on Hammer and Anvil, Linchpin, Stalwarts. And this is on Search and Destroy, Swift Action, Scorched Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, here we have a lot of green, but we have 1 or 2 armies that we need to be very careful around. And again, a lot of that green is like we're expected to get a win into George. So that's going to be 1 green out of those 4. So it's not actually quite as good as it looks. We need to navigate this Slanesh. It's a very, typical, I think it's a very typical Legions of Excess list. Is that right, Tanner?
Yeah, it was Max Fiends, Double Keeper, Pile of Chariots, and a Beast. Yep.
It seems pretty normal. And then this IK list was pretty interesting. It had 12 dogs and a Knight Gallant.
Yeah, Tanner and I thought this list was like incorrectly entered at first. We did not realize
I couldn't fucking believe it. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I remember us looking through the list and we're like, surely this list is 200, 300 points overcosted. Nah, dude. 2,000. You gotta play 12 knights and a melee knight now.
Yeah, the Gallant's like 300 points or something like that. It's like
like
it's the
320?
cheapest
Yeah.
Knight Passy by
And
far.
Hellrids are 130.
Yeah, and they're still
Yeah.
bad.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
For the
okay.
record, a
See,
gallant is
sorry.
380, but yes.
Alright. But yeah, I remember Tanner and I both saw this and we're like, we don't want any of that smoke, dude. We're gonna run out of stuff. And our like putting cheap bodies on objectives to flip points doesn't really matter when they're like, Lamau, I'm OC 16, idiot.
Yeah, this is by far the scariest list in the tournament for me because my whole army has fly and there's 6 helper ends. And it's like
Yeah, and you also wound his whole army on 5s because you're Tau.
just an unfathomably bad matchup. So scary to look at. I hope whoever played it, James, you're listening. You had such a sick list for this tournament.
Yes, sir.
If I may interject for just a moment, it was so funny sitting at the table and a sheer disbelief. I had to pull up the 40K app and make it on my phone at the table, and I was just like, shake my damn head. It's 2000 on the dot. It was truly unreal.
You're like, this guy just went in and manually changed the point cost and assumed no one was going to check.
So yeah, we were like kind of scared of that list.
Yep.
That was something we had to navigate in the pairings process.
Yeah, definitely. So, again, our strategy, choose first defender based on which
Sorry,
one of our...
just one thing real
Yep,
quick,
go for it.
Lucas. For those of you who are curious, James does end the event 2-2-0 with 2 20s and 2 9s. Nice,
Wow.
baby.
Fucking legend, dude.
Funny. He found Tau twice. Okay. Yeah, so we've got these 3 to 4 blunters, and we're going to find one of them to defend with first. And the ones we're not going to defend with are the ones that are essential for our attacking pins, right? So in this instance, Tanner is very helpful to attack Slanesh, right? Because he's the one person on our whole roster who actually has a good matchup into them. So he kind of needs to stay around for that attack. Similarly, I really want Max to stay around in case we see Eye Knights come down immediately. If Eye Knights comes down immediately, I want to attack it basically with Max and Death and Alex 100% of the time. So who is not essential to any of these pins, right? I think it's pretty obvious that the answer is Nick, because his 2 good matchups are into Guard, where we expect a big win, and into George, where we expect a big win. He's not that essential into Slanesh, and he's not that essential into T-Suns at all. So he's kind of a fairly run-of-the-mill player here who's probably going to get about a 10. So in this instance, I believe we defend with Nick. Is that correct, Nick?
That was correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The rare.
And I believe they attacked you with Marines and...
I think it was Marines and Slanesh. No, because I think they
would have
defended
taken
Slanesh.
that.
No, they defended Guard. They gave me Marines and something.
It might have been T-Suns. I think it was T-Suns.
Okay. It wasn't IK.
Either way.
I remember that.
Either way, we saw
There was a
green.
moment. There was a moment where we almost took the other one, and then we took Marines instead.
Yeah. Either way, we saw the green and we took the green. You know, it's a pretty safe bet in 5s because you're only playing 5 games. Allowing people to escape is a strategy, but usually when you see a good matchup, you should probably just take it. So our Votan takes Marines, and you said they defended Guard, and into that we throw presumably our own Guard and Orcs. And they take Guard. So now we're playing Votan versus Marines and Guard versus Guard. Wow. Thrilling. And then, so at this point, we still have the rather terrifying Eye Knights hanging around. But we're magically going to make that work. I don't remember who defends here. It might be me who defends.
I think this is me. I think I get board choice.
It was Tanner because we didn't want him to play into IK.
Yeah,
exactly.
And he had 2 greens and a red. So it was like he got a guaranteed win and he got to avoid the red.
Yep.
Yes, we give Tanner his board choice. We give him a good matchup and we avoid the catastrophic matchup. That's a good enough reason to defend with him in the second round. So that happens. And we kind of honestly, considering we're only looking at the right-hand corner here, we could have ended up with some bad stuff, but we ended up with 3 greens. So that kind of went as ideal as possible. And that's probably just an information mismatch between us 2 teams. They took something they shouldn't have, basically. And then, yeah, so I'm playing against T-Suns. and Alex ends up playing against IK, which is ideal for this pairings here. Cool. So overall, we're feeling very confident here, right? We've navigated all the scary shit, and we somehow have come out with 5 greens. How'd it go, boys?
I think it went well. Took quickly about my game. I got to play into Barry, which was the guard match. If it was combined arms versus combined arms. Barry's was tanks, though. I mean, if this was Codex, it would definitely have been an armored spearhead list, but sadly we were playing with the index, so he was stuck with combined arms, but it was 2 Dorns, 3 tank commanders with demo cannons, and 3 Russes with demo cannons. Just tank, just all the tanks and all the shooting. So he easily was able to outshoot me, but he chose a pretty dense WTC board with crates in the middle and buildings, and so we just kind of scooted around in a weird circle because it was search and destroy, while my 6 Ogren hugged a Rogel Dorn for the entirety of the game. It was a very fun game, but it really just came down to, I have trash bodies that can go hug your tanks for a bit and out OC you, and I'll beat you on the primary. Especially going second, I went 10, 10, 10, 15 against 5, 5, 5, 5. And it was just more trash. Here's 30 OC to your 5 or 4 on a Russ. Yeah, overall great game. Love Barry. He's such a sick dude. And, fellow guard player. Gotta love the man.
Chris, could you comment briefly on what that board state looked like to non-guard players? Because it was happening behind me and we both were in awe. Oh, we lost our
Is
Chris.
Chris here, dude? No, he left, dude.
I will volunteer a piece of information, which was by the time me and the Slanesh guy had finished deploying, Max and Barry had a line of tanks diagonally across the board, all in close combat with each other. It was the craziest, literally 8 tanks touching tips in the dead center of the board, and their game resolved in an hour 45. They were cackling the whole time. It was really a remarkable thing to be next to.
Sorry, gang, I was having internet issues with some.
It was a very good card game.
Nice. I'll talk now. Yeah, this Imperial Knights list put the fear of God in me. Because surrounded, everyone around me is like this. I cannot beat this. This is unbeatable for me. And I'm playing Death Watch. You just point at something and it dies. So when I've known this guy for a couple of years. I played him way back in the day. He did what I really didn't want him to do, which was take his wall of bodies, deploy them on the line, go first, and then just push them as far forward at me as possible. This was also the mission, I think, where you could advance and do actions. Or it was one of the, so I was just fucked. He was just he scored 10 points turn 1. He got cleansed, contained, literally breathing down all objectives. And I'm scared. I'm not going to lie. And Chris can comment too while you're here. People were coming up to my table and were like, oh, he's fucking cooked. He is dead. And it was not incorrect. I basically had to start leaf blowing knights off the table. I did get 10 points on Bring It Down that turn. I drew it because I saw the Galant. I was like, you have to die for my points. You are a pinata for secondary points. Turns out when you AOC and are in cover, the Helverns don't do too much. They do. You're making 3-ups. The Meltas are clearing 2 dudes at a time, and he had Meltas on all of his guns. The melee was whatever. I basically just get to do what I love to do, which is advance Deathwatch veterans out of a Rhino and charge some one idiot on their natural expansion while digging out other places. And those guys just kept, because he pushed everything at me. He didn't leave that much at his home natural objective. So they just kept ping-ponging back and forth between the middle and the home objective. It was amazing. Thunderhammers are great when they're good. So basically it came down to him pushing me, slowly leaf blowing, and then at the end of the game he had 1 knight and no primary. I do believe I went first on this. I can't remember. But at the end of the game he couldn't score any secondaries or anything. So it just goes to show how strong Deathwatch is at just answering stat check armies, where it's like, here's 1 million wounds at T10 or T12, and I'm like, okay, Thunder strikes again, hits something, and we're good. We're golden.
I'm curious how I know you're default game plan is to at least leave some stuff in the sky against a list like that. Did you do the same here, or did you put it all on the board in the event that, something like this would happen?
Yeah, I will. Okay, I think I could have left more on the ground. The thing is, if I left the Thunderstrike and the Talent Strike on the ground, I can't pick the Thunderstrike back up. So even with 14-inch movement, I'd rather have the turn to drop it so I can see things. I did leave the Terminator unit I usually put in the air on the ground so I could sight to sight both Terminator units and just have the Indom team come defend my natural expansion. And that's what ended up happening. They came down, dropped on my natural expansion, and just like said, if you come at me, I'm going to Overwatch and wound you, or I'm going to kind of leaf blower things off. While Terminators could run, missile launcher, the things that could kill it, and then charge some asshole, make it battle shocked, potentially flip primary. But I think in hindsight, I probably should have left the Talent Strike on the air or on the ground. But I didn't respect him just hitting that W button so hard, which he did.
I would love to make one comment about the game that I got to play. I don't have to do a whole game thing. Just that Breachers in the past have been really good and everyone respected them. And there will be a time in the future when Breachers are good again and people respect them. And this meta wasn't that time. Like most of my games, the Breachers damage was not what it's supposed to be. But in this one game, I got to shoot Fiends on objectives with Breachers. And playing Tau Guide into Don't Shoot Me, I'm Sexy, the strat is like very challenging. But whenever you actually got to shoot Fiends, I one hit the mirror with the Feel No Pain through the Thieves of Pain and still deleted a whole squad of Fiends to open that game. And it was like, oh my God, this is what Tau should do all the time. I just want to make that one comment. And Brett, you were a great guy to play. I'm sorry that had to happen to you, but I'm thrilled that it happened for me. So.
Hell yeah, man. I always say that strat's a joke because it just means that I get to kill 2 units while only having to see one of them. Like, you just gave me indirect fire. Thank you very much. Very glad to see an army that can actually deliver on that promise.
Yes. The Don't Shoot Me if you battle shock, however, into Tau is like army-wide -1 to hit because you can't actually commit to getting a good unit till they pop the strat. So I spent like 20 minutes of our game like, would you please pop the strat now so I can start guiding? And he'd be like, no. That part is pretty tough.
Hell yeah. Sweet. All right. So clean sweep across the board here. Pina picks up an 11 into the Knights. Lukas puts a 19 on the T-Suns, how the mighty have fallen. Tanner puts a 17 on those Demons. Max puts a 16 in the Mirror. And Naj comes out with an 11 into those pesky Blood Angels. Get blunted. Great job, boys. How we feeling after day one?
I mean, we're good. we're 2-0. I think what we're a little scared about is the next round is Purge the Foe, which is one that unfortunately our switch to these more hoardy, good primary denial armies doesn't quite matter as much because denying people's expansion on Purge doesn't really matter. And having lots of units comes to hurt you. So
I would like to bring up the fact that I was sick as a dog this whole weekend. I had what I thought was a sinus infection that became it was strep throat. And this caused me to have intense pain talking, which I did a lot over the weekend. But spirits were high. Food was good. Boys were near. We had a good time. And I'm better now. So
Dots was fun, dude. Shout out to Chris and Underwhelming Force for coming and hanging out, dude.
It was really nice to have these intra-community hangouts, which is, it's like back in Magic days, the whole part of the gathering, but, the 40K, it's nice to have these big social outings. And it wasn't just us two. There were like 10 people there from, I think, 3 or 4 different teams that came to hang out afterwards, and that was phenomenal to see.
I also want to say your team events aren't as good as our team events because our team events were given these metal cards for pairings that we took home with us, which are snazzy. So shout out to Alex.
Yeah, those were cool as hell. We used them for pairings. It was quite fun.
Honestly,
they even
cooler than any trophy.
They even had their team name on the back too. So cool.
Yeah, very sick.
All right,
round 3 time. So we know our round 3 matchup. the evening, Saturday evening. So we have the night to prepare for it, and it is Deep Strike Gang, one of the other heaviest hitters at the event. So this is quite the interesting round of pairings. Like Nick alluded to, we're playing Purge the Foe, which is a little bit scarier for our comp because we are very MSU, and our primary game plan doesn't really work. And the comp we're going to is fairly elite. It's got Custodies, World Leaders, and Grey Knights in it. But they
Fair
do
to
have some stuff
say
that we can.
We considered this over the weekend the best comp there, outside of our own, and the team to beat. At least, like, that was the impression. This was our big scary matchup for the weekend.
Yeah,
Unless
these
one of
guys
you
are.
disagree.
I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, these dudes also like came prepped and ready to play. Like they had a game plan for everyone. Definitely a pretty serious team. So we got James playing as Custodies. It's like a big blunter list. Ken is playing Bridgehead Guard. Cohen's playing 20 World Leader Terminators. Sean is playing Nick's list from Rose City Rampage with 15 Purgators and 6 Dread Knights. And Tim's playing Outlander Claw GSC. One of the detachments of all time. And yeah. Lay green column. So yeah. Some interesting stuff here. Again, the GSC is going to be good for us because it doesn't really kill very hard. So it is quite Purge the Foeable. And, Custodies and Grey Knights, they're going to sit behind their walls. They'll get their couple of kills. They'll get their hold. Their opponent will get their couple of kills. They'll get their hold. It's really, again, navigating this World Leaders that's going to be the most essential part of our game plan. If the World Leaders get their good matchup into Guard or Tau, it'll be bad for us. If we can manage to get World Leaders into myself or Alex or Nick, then we're kind of chilling. So that's the main thing that we're trying to navigate around here. So with that in mind, we have to pick a defender who's not going to be an essential part of a pin. Someone's mic is mega staticky, by the way.
I think
Tyler,
it's
did you mute?
Max? No,
There we go.
it's Tyler.
It was Tyler. Sorry. So we have to pick a defender who is not an essential part of a pin. With that in mind, we basically cannot throw Alex or Nick forward because they are essential into World Leaders. I believe we throw Tanner here. Is that right, guys?
Was
Okay.
it? No, because we wanted Tanner for guard. Did we still first defend him?
No, I thought we defended.
Yes, because they attacked with guard.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And we accepted it.
Yeah, because we didn't want to throw you away because we knew you'd get blunted, and we didn't want to throw Max into, quite the hellhole that was awaiting him.
Did I go
also,
first?
Oh, yeah.
Was it me?
I think we wanted green matchups into World Leaders.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident we defended with Tau here.
I'm confident because this is the one round of the tournament that has a board that nerfs my whole army if I hit it. So we have to not allow me to hit board 52, otherwise my army turns off.
Yeah, this was a weird round too, because all of our matrix got redone because we were playing on Purge. So yeah.
Yeah, things are going to be fairly tie-ish, right? We'll probably end up, this matrix probably ends up on an average of like 1.5 wins, maybe 1, with some downside because it's Purge the Foe. It's going to be a very drawish mission. For us to win this one, and I want to play for the win, not for the tie, and I'm sure all of my teammates are doing the same, we need to have some other upside other than our one win. And that upside I'm trying to find is table pick. So because Tanner cannot play on one of the tables, and he doesn't like some other ones, there's definitely going to be at least 2 tables that he can play on, and hopefully we can get him a good matchup by defending with him first. So he comes down first, and they attack with Guard and Custodies? Question mark? World Leaders? No, World Leaders. Surely World Leaders, right? Either way, we grab the Guard.
Yeah.
We grab the Guard knowing that it's a good matchup for us, and it removes the risk of me playing into Guard later on down the road. Yeah. Does anyone remember who their defender? I think was it Grey Knights?
I think it was Grey Knights.
That makes sense to me. Yes, and then we offered them Orcs and Deathwatch. Again, Sean straight up jorking at Bursek, massive coward, and rejects me. And Deathwatch ends up playing into the Grey Knights. So coming out of that, not feeling too bad. We got 1 win and a tie. But again, now we have to navigate this rather terrifying World Leader situation. Max is still in the pool, and he's got a bad matchup into Custodes and a bad matchup into World Leaders. At this juncture, my initial impression is defend with Max so we can try to avoid sketchy situations as much as possible. After some consideration, what we end up going with instead is an Orcs defend, basically trying to get me the most ideal situation I can into either GSC or World Leaders. Because if I get to pick a board against those armies, I know I can push past a green. So here is where we kind of deviate from our usual strategy of like get to the 3v3 scrum, defend to avoid the worst case scenario, and then we kind of have 1 or 2 wins in play from there. I think we need to try to headhunt a big win because of Purge the Foe. So Max unfortunately gets thrown to the wolves a little bit, but he does actually find his way into the most ideal matchup for him at this point, which is GSC. So that was great for us. And it worked out because I got to play into World Leaders on my table choice, which meant that Nick fell down into Custodes, I believe, as the Forgotten.
That was
so.
Correct, yeah.
That is where we ended up. Honestly, considering how bad that could have been in the 3v3 scrum if they defended with someone else, not too bad. We come out of this with 3 ties and 2 wins. We've got Tanner into guard with an expected green and myself into World Leaders with an expected green. So, quite the round. This is on Purge the Foe, Tipping Point, and it's Adapt or Die.
Adapt or Die, yep.
What's up, Mr. Tyler?
What is this Custodes list? Is this like normal Spearhead stuff?
No, it is a Talons list. It is very much an anti-melee blunter list because it's like playing off that reactive move to try to force people to come out and then go like, I'm going back behind a wall. So you can't
Gotcha.
Or you can't shoot me sort of thing.
Double Vinatari, double Warden, a 5-mana Laris brick, a pair of tanks.
2 Caladius, Caladiuses, yeah.
2 Calladia, yeah. Max, is your orange into this just based on the fact that your Dorns are scared of Calladii? Like, what's going on here?
It's just I can't get the Wardens can literally walk out, absorb my entire army, and then they touch me and I lose. Like I don't think my entire army can kill a brick of Wardens through the Feel No Pain.
For sure.
And then the Blade Champions, they sprint at me and I'm like, wow, what the hell is this?
Maybe on not Purge the Foe, it'd be a tie.
Yeah, on not Purge, I
because
put this as a yellow probably, but because of Custodes, I think they just kill Taroxes really easily, guys inside, and they just outscore me there.
Yeah, my experience is that Purge the Foe is a pretty draw fest of a mission, even if you're not really in a position to be getting a ton of kills. And a Talons list definitely has enough units that you should be able to put at least 1 down every turn. I'm kind of curious if it might have been worth accepting that matchup and getting Nick into the to the GSC. Because as you guys said, that is an army that you can genuinely punish really hard.
The thing is, we attacked. They defended GSC, so they picked Max, and they threw.
Oh, they defended GSC, and you guys defended.
We defended Orcs. Because we realized our loss condition was if we attack Orcs and Custodes, then we lose the round.
So you're. Oh, and it's 3s, so like you have no choice in the matter at that point. You have to throw. Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. Sorry, I don't do a lot of 5s.
Yeah, I know, it's weird, right?
It is weird to wrap your head around.
There's a little bit of RNG.
A lot of it
in there.
Yeah, a lot of it is the 3v3 scrum RNG. So
it's like, who are they defending? And James realized too, as soon as like we slammed Lukas down defender, he's like, shit, I didn't think you guys would do that. We might have just lost the round, dude. Like,
give me them Terminators, baby.
He's like, that's the one thing I messed up. He's like, I should have defended or something. Or no, I think it was the World Leaders. I told him, like, you should have defended World Leaders, dude. Like, you need to treat them like orcs. Like, they need to be babies. They need to pick their matchups.
True. Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about my game here. I played on GW Layout 6. And given it is Purge the Foe, I think the 20 Terminator list is like a delicious meal for tactical. But I want to be cognizant of the fact that it's Purge the Foe, right? So if things go south and he gets like a good Exalted 8-pound lock in combat, and he starts just the cascade of Killmores, I think he can keep me to a respectable score. Or rather earn himself a respectable score. So I want to be respectful, and that's why I put a green. My game plan here, especially given that my version of tactical is so trash heavy, is to just roll a wave of trucks and Gretchen and 5 Storm Boys and, just like utter dog shit toward him, all with the stealth order so that his Terminators don't shoot him. And then from there, eventually he will have to crash with some valuable stuff to clear that off to get his Killmores, and then I will just blast him. So I am just literally rolling toward him, especially because it's tipping point, right? So we have this narrow front of engagement. I'm just walking toward him with this wall of like 4 trucks that he just can't get past, and I'm just pressing onto his actual natural expansion with like 3 trucks, fully body blocking him. And eventually he's like, okay, turn 3, rapid ingress the Terminators. I have to come in. He crashes on me, and then I just completely annihilate his army. Seeing the game plan in my head become real on the table was really satisfying for me. And yeah, his army was like vaporized in a turn and a half. Really just like a 4-wound Angron left on turn 4, and then he died immediately after that. So yeah, unfortunately, this is just kind of like a completely cursed matchup for the Terminators. I think might be like a 10 Termi build or more Exalted that they're feeling really scared of, considering my entire army is leadership 7. Getting locked in combat is like a massive loss condition. But as soon as they're kind of like penned in by a wave of shit, they're not really breaking out, and they're going to have to land their charges somewhere where I can shoot them with tank busters. And that just is really not a thing that they're that interested in receiving for more than 0 rounds of the game. So yeah. Let's see. Anything cool happened this game? Green and GK on Purge is quite the flex. For me? I don't think so.
You're the one guy that said green.
This guy's World Eater's army, though, was gorgeously hobbied. It was really nice looking. It was like Dark Wolf themed, which was super sick.
Yeah, a lot of them were like prints. I think almost everything was printed. And it was he's like primarily a Space Wolves player, so it was like black and purple and like everything was werewolf. It was super sick. Felt bad blowing up the amazing. Felt bad blowing up the Terminators. So yeah, that was my game. It was super fun to just like know what I needed to do and execute for the boys.
Yeah, I'll quick talk about my game. I got to play into Timothy Grant, he's just a nice dude, Tim. Playing GSC Outlander Claw, which is the it used to be double OC, I think, on trucks and bikes, and now it's just +1 OC on trucks and bikes, which like it's the same on the bike, but it's worse on the truck. It's got some really cool tricks in it. I got to go second, which was nice. And this list I had 2 Hellhounds, which into GSC it was like, oh, I'll get my kill 1 on your turn for a command point usually, which was helped a lot because Tim had some amazing plays, forcing a Dorn to Battle Shock to bring it to OC 0 with I think the Clamavis is the guy that does that. And then respawning some neophytes onto the mid objective to out OC the other Dorn on it. It was a classic GSC primary play, which it's always a lovely thing to see that. Highlight honestly of the game for me. I went second, and Tim ended up driving a couple Atlan Jackals and trapping a Dorn in my DZ pretty far back. But I got that Dorn up with a move, and I rolled boxcars on a charge to get it onto the middle objective and take that, though, from one turn, which was pretty awesome. That Dorn flew for like 25 inches that one turn, which was pretty awesome. I like a Rogel Dorn that goes fast. But it was an amazing game. I played Tim twice before at singles events, and he's just a wonderful, awesome dude. Knows his rules really well. Just a fun game overall. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim's a G.
I also want to talk about this round because Lukas did the thing where he got the win for the boys. In this round, I got the lose for the boys, which was a big sad for our Matrix. I played Ken Bush, who rocked. I hadn't met this guy before. He was very fun. He drank rum with me in the morning, which is like fast track into my heart. James told me he was going to be cool and we are going to have a fun game, and James is right. Ken and I both had this as a green in our respective matrices, which we couldn't tell each other when we started the game, but we were both playing to win it. And after the fact, we talked about it quite a bit, and we both have come to this is not that this bridgehead exists anymore, but for that week, that's actually a flip, and it's whoever goes first. I was set up where if I'd gone first, I was going to crack 2 Toroxes and the guys inside to open the game, and he wasn't going to have enough stuff left to play it with me. I didn't get to go first, and instead, this sounds so dumb, but I disrespected this man's 5-man rattling unit, and it shot half of a Crudox and my Ethereal to death, who then died to mortars when like you only lose 1 instead of 2. And this little, like, my trash dying early cascaded so quickly into screening this bridgehead army that it became a huge problem. I also picked a bad macro strategy. I was really confident that I'd be able to get a hold more somewhere in the middle of this game, or maybe 2. And he did a really good job of like just barely keeping that held down while getting a turn or 2 of kill more. And yeah, I got super flipped on the Matrix. It was a fun game. It sucks to lose for your team. I will say it's my first time like getting bodied when I'm not supposed to get bodied. And the emotional damage, the psychic damage was strong. So I'm glad we still got a tie on this round, but it was definitely a surprise. Really scrappy game. Playing 2 shooting armies that have like 0 melee units between the 2 of them is really interesting, because every time we charged a unit, we didn't really want it to be in combat, but we just couldn't afford to not put OC on objectives. There's a lot of cool play. I think this iteration of Bridgehead would have been fine to keep in the game. I think the one in the book is fucked up, and hopefully it's nerfed so hard before it really comes out that we don't have to deal with it.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, this one was fun. This was an interesting game. Getting shot by science is pretty annoying, but like, you know, it was at least an interactable game. So, and good to Ken. Ken played it really well. He was really fun to play the game with. Hey, thank you, sir. It was really fun to play the game with.
6.
Yeah.
That was the name of those rallies.
Yeah, you hate to get punished by an early disrespect, but I think we're both playing armies that really thrive on someone disrespecting you. And we talked about it again at lunch, and just came down to like, boy, there's nowhere to hide these armies filled with guys if they want to get any upfield presence. And it felt kind of like playing an old 8th edition game where you're drop shooting somebody turn 1. So, which was fun. Yeah. Sorry, boys, that I got flipped, but it was a fun game.
It happens, man.
Which table was this played on?
We pulled one of the tables we think Eaters wanted, if I remember right. WTC Light or WTC?
It was I think it was the heavy WTC.
It was a board that for our 2 armies, we were going to shoot each other nonstop. Like, there was no way to hide, and we wanted it to be a game where the guard player didn't get to hide and play for back half of the game. So we definitely bet on that. And I don't, again, think that was incorrect. I think I could have micro and macroed this better to pull more of a tie-ish game. I don't know. Ken, if you disagree, throw it in the chat. But I think we both thought it was strong. We could see our advantages. It was harder to see the lost path until it resolved.
Yeah. Because I think generally if you have a moving shooting army and a dropping shooting army, the heavy table is going to favor the moving shooting army.
That was the thought, that he wouldn't be able to, especially with how fast Maka is. My thinking was like, I'm going to screen most of the board before this game starts. He did a lot of shooting where he would drop back into his backfield and shoot, but he had basically, because those Taraxes got to get into decent positions, it took me 1 more turn than I needed to dig them out. And also the stupid tank commander that we all thought was bad in that list was a hero. Like, I still don't think it was very good, but it did kind of fuck me up the whole game. And Tau has a bit of a problem when you need to kill a tank. Like, I had my turn 2, I shot my... every Tau player will have this complaint every game, but like turn 2, I shot my Riptides and they didn't do anything. And then you're on the back foot for the whole game, because your 1 turn where you need your shooting to do like 10 damage to armor didn't do it. Like, ah, shit, now it gets hard. Yeah. I don't know. He played it really well.
Gotcha. Cool. Alrighty. Anyone else on this round?
I'll say like a haiku. 2 drop shoot armies, 1 went second, scored 12. That's just kind of what happened. I went first, so.
Very exciting. Alrighty. So the shakeout here then, as he just said, Alex pulls an 8 into Sean's Grey Knights. Tanner ends up with a 5 into the Guard. Lucas puts a full 19 on those World Eaters. Jesus. Nick also ends up in a pretty drawish situation, goes down 8-12 to James Lee and his Custodes. And then Max pulls the 11-9 into the GSC. For a final score of... Sorry?
I said you love to see like 3 of the boys going first on Purge, dude.
Yeah.
Didn't matter for Lucas' game, but
yeah. For a final score here of 51-49, that's the upside of a draw for the Ruffians. A good round overall. The pairing strategy seems to have pretty much panned out, and Lukas got his big win. But then all 2 of the 3 draws was the slipping. This was the thing that we talked about at Pyra a lot, that like, if your plan is all draws and a win, it can get really sketchy when all those draws go from being like 10s to like 8s. Because on an individual level, 1 draw being an 8 is like, yeah, that's a draw. Sure, why not? But if it happens across the board because you're all playing really restrictive and defensive, or in this case, you're playing on the wrong side of Purge or something, like things can get pretty sketchy. Even before that Tanner game slips a little bit. That's a really scary thing to watch out for when you're building for that strategy.
yeah,
I think that's very accentuated in 8s, right? Because like if your 4 blunters all come back -2, okay, now you're playing down 8 points. Whereas I feel like the one person fumbles or doesn't understand the matchup, that's a little more worse in 5s, where like that chunk of points is so much harder to make up when you only have 4 games to talk to instead of 7.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Chris here, because something that we did that helped with that a bit was Lucas had us all kind of huddle together at the start of each round and give Chris hey, we know what your matrix is. Give us a point score, like a 10, or like an 8 or a 12. Chris is going to write that down as like the projected score based off of no information yet other than like matrix and like, board choice. And then like once we know more information, call Chris over and tell him like how far you are from your prediction, like plus or minus. And then like that way we can decide, hey, do our like wins need to push further, and do our like other ties need to like play less risky? So like one of the very funny things was I went first, and I was like, call Chris over. I'm like, yo, instant -2, dude. I'm gonna try to get it back. If you need me to push more, come let me know. That sort of thing.
One thing I think was really fascinating from a macro strategy team's perspective was the pacing of games, where I believe it was James and Nick were like bottom of 3 before a lot of the other people were like done with round 1. And so you have these instances where like, well, maybe Nick needs to push for more points if possible, but we have not enough data from everyone else to determine what the best strategy is. And so I think Nick straight up used 10 minutes of his clock just sitting down watching because they were so efficient with the tempo and stuff. And then James entered what is permanently entered in my brain as the wandering phase, where he just went around as a player with an iPad just going around. And it was very interesting to see, which, will never exist in a singles environment, but it's just another layer of complexity of the teams that I thought was fascinating.
This was actually bottom around 2. I realized like, holy shit, we're flying through this game. I can't do anything else right now because after turn 3, I cannot push anymore. And I was asking like turn 1, I'm like, hey, it's -2. How, like, I went first. Should I push him right now? And we're like, no, like if you get your 8 to like 10, like maybe a 12, right? Like if you get like anywhere between 8 to 10, like we're fine. We're winning the round, don't take unnecessary risks. Because if you bounce, you're getting like a 6,
Yeah.
And at the end of round 2, I was like, everyone else is still playing round 1. I need to hold steady and wait to know, like, because this is my last moment to try to push, because I need to start pressuring turn 3. I think James and I burned like an hour on my clock, dude. Like, because we had like a 4-hour round. So yeah, we just like talked about life and how we were doing. We hadn't talked in a while. It was fun, but yeah, it was a very weird experience because I'm like, I know I can finish this game in like 45 minutes because there's not much that's going to be happening.
Oh, for sure.
I think another. Oh, sorry, Chris. To go off of that, there was a situation round top of 2 where I was presented an opportunity where it's like you can go super duper aggro. It's pretty risky, but if you do it, you basically table him. But it was so early, and we were basically probably the fastest people playing, maybe not besides Nick, where it's like I don't really want to risk that. And maybe be the reason everyone, I'm super behind, which is maybe like insight for me to play slower in general, or to just maybe wait in the situation in hindsight. But to go off of what Chris said, the timing of everything is something that is not innate to singles players playing teams for the first 2 or 3 events, because you're handed the Matrix system in aggregate, and you're like, here's how this works. And maybe after your first couple of events, you understand the Matrix. And now we're getting into the minutia of teams' environments where you have these opportunities to just pat the clock, say this is upper level team stuff. This is a tool in your toolbox that you can use in a team's environment, which was really insightful, and I'm excited to express it in the future.
It's also not particularly controllable. Like, my loss took me a long time to lose, which did not give you guys a ton of time to react to, right? Like, if Nick needs that info when he's making his turn 3 movement, I didn't have that info yet. Like, the game was still in the balance, and the collapse came in 4 and 5. It was like, if you catch wind, if someone gets a bad break turn 2, you have a lot of time, especially if you've been doing that. You've been like just banking 10 minutes. Then you have that reactive, but like, there is a level of, if not RNG, like there's only so much controllable about that thing. You have to do a lot of hedging from you're over there sitting, waiting to like, do I spring the trap or not? Yeah, it's very cool.
Absolutely. One last thing I'll put before we move on, because in the sake of time or whatever, it is, again, a very important skill, I think, in teams, which I'm not sure if I completely did adequately or not in the specific round, but identifying in the middle of a round where you can find more points, where you have X number of people who are trying to blunt, X number of people are trying to hunt, and then the paradigm shifts, and you have to determine, hey, we need more points from somebody. Somebody has to switch. Somebody has to get more aggressive. And then identifying, is it possible? Because some people are past the go turn and it's not possible. They've already full sent. Or is it possible? And identifying like, well, maybe Alex can push, but then again, GK isn't an army you can really push into. Can Max push more into GSC, and trying to cobble those mid-round 1 or 2 more points? It's extremely difficult. And I don't know if people recognize that in a team's setting.
Yeah, it's really easy in hindsight to like say what you should have done, right? But
oh yeah,
that's with all the information revealed.
Yeah, you also really don't want to be the person who like pushes when you ultimately shouldn't have pushed, and all of a sudden you cost your team the round that way, right? So there's like all sorts of timing things that are just so hard to account for.
That was kind of my question then, I guess. There's a lot of theory there, but at what point in time did it become clear that Tanner was going down, and was anyone able to make any mid-round adjustments with that in mind?
I was already done with my game, is what I recognized. And then I was talking to Chris, and Chris's projections were like kind of this, and then kind of lower, and then a little bit here, and then a little bit lower. So that was, for me, I was completely out of it at that point.
Yeah, I burned an hour off my clock. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, dude.
Oh, no, I was just going to say it was an incremental thing where the numbers just tick down slowly.
Yeah, I burned an hour off my clock, and I'm like, well, so far Tanner's still projecting a 13. I need to go finish this game because I only have 40 minutes left.
Yeah, I could have done
in an hour and a half. It doesn't go straight from 13 to 5, right? By the time it was down to 5, we had maybe an hour of the round left. Nick was basically fully committed. Alex was basically fully committed. I was going as hard as I possibly fucking could. And like, we could look to Max, but like, he's going to be bogged down in GSE. Maybe we can get him a couple more points out of him, but like, no one can really change fundamentally the way they're committing to a game at this point, right?
Yes. And also this,
I might have been done by then too. Yeah.
A bit of our team comp issue in retrospect was that playing Votan and Tau, more me because I don't have melee to dig out. We did have 2 armies that part of their like getting the higher side of a projection involves a lot of early game commitment that you can't unwind midway through. Which this was the round where I got punished for that in the build, but it was like to get the win you have to go, it's probably going to be fine by the end of the game. But if it isn't, it's going to be a full collapse. It's not going to be a small loss where you still have like 800 points standing behind a wall. So don't know if would repeat.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn in the tension there of like how you simultaneously like everything gets decided early on, and if it crashes, it burns. But also, you're not sure what's happening until it's too late for everyone. Like that seems gross.
It
I feel
wasn't
like you get one
awesome
of
to
those two.
experience. I'll tell you for sure. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I've scrapped out so many of those games with Monka where it feels like you're gonna get tabled, and maybe you do, and it's still either a dead tie or a small win or like a very small loss. Rarely do you end up losing a bunch of points. This was, at least in this instance, I didn't respect the way the primary on Purge was going to trend throughout, and it's just like that mission Omega punished the way I approached that matchup. I don't know if it might just punish the faction, but it definitely punished the way I tried to play it. So if I had lost that before, I could have given the team info earlier, but I didn't have my head wrapped around how bad it was going to pan out points wise by the very end for sure.
That makes sense. Yeah, you're generally, if you're an army that's trying to hit hard and get tabled, you need to acquire a primary lead, and that just doesn't happen on Purge.
Exactly.
You get maybe
in fact,
a kill more.
It's the other way around. Like you get one kill more, but you give up 2 or 3 on turn 3, 4, 5, and it's like, man, you've sold your army for a primary loss. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Alrighty. So when it's all said and done, Alex comes up with an 8, Tanner comes up with a 5, Lukas comes up with a 19, Nick comes up with an 8, and Max comes up with an 11 for a 51-49 upside of the draw. A moral victory, but an unfortunate result given the way it was matrixed out. Good work, guys. Lukas, what are you doing here as captain to try to get the team ready for a big bounce back round into round 4, trying to stay in the hunt?
To be honest, I don't really know if I did anything in particular. I mean, if other people noticed something, please speak up. But I've never been like a motivator type person. I just kind of moved on to the next, right? Like it's very easy to get mired in all of the what could have beens and how should I haves, and like believe me, I've had those thoughts playing at the WTC. Like there are things that occur, and you can get lost in that sauce super fucking easily. It's important not to, because every round is a fresh round and every game is a fresh game of Warhammer. And if you're thinking about what you could have done previously, that's going to affect your current play. So I just like put that behind me, move on to the next one. If we finish 3-0 and if we finish 2-0-2 and we could have finished 3-0-1 because everyone's thinking about the previous round, that's when I'm going to be pissed. So hopefully, you know, the other folks, you know, can, what am I trying to say here? Caught on to that vibe.
To go for that, I don't think any of us, I mean, besides Tanner, because we didn't feel super dejected, because we were like we said earlier in the episode, this was like our scariest team, and it's not at the end of the game. It's at round 3. And we tied them, which we had talked about previously was a very realistic outcome. And so like we're not super upset given the situation, but we have to realize that now we have to lock in and crush the next round to win the tournament, because that's the avenue that we can still reach.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was pretty upset at the end of this round. Not like at the team or anyone in general, but I was more like the entire game waiting to be let off the leash. And everyone's like, no, just fucking hold steady. And I'm like, okay. And then we like tied, and I'm like, all right, next round, I'm just going. I'm fucking going for it. Like, we need to win big. I'm not going to sit around behind a wall and just score a 10 anymore. You know, like whatever I pair into, like I'm just throwing myself out. Unless it's CK, you know, then you know that sucks. But yeah,
this upcoming Matrix was pretty scary for us.
The other thing is, I think going into this, there was one team. There was like basically an up pair and a down pair, right? Because there was like another team that was 2-0-1, but then the next best team was like 1-1-1 or something. Yeah, classic single stuff.
Hell yeah, man. All right, well, I'm excited to see what Nick Unleashed looks like as we move into round 4, the final round, pairing up against the Rose City Witch Pigeons, the Sapphire Edition. I don't know if that's good or bad. But, ooh, it sure looks bad. Jesus Christ. What's the mission?
Yeah, this was the up pair. The mission Was Crucible Take and Hold.
Banners. Yep.
And Banners. Yep.
All right. So just to run through all the lists here, Alex is playing Orcs, Tactical Brigade, good stuff. I don't think there's too much crazy here. This Custodes list is Shield Host, Tanner? The reactive move one?
No, the reactive is Talons.
It is
Reactive
Shield
move is
Host.
the Boys and
It
Girls
does
Club.
not have a reactive move. This is
the
fives
critical
one.
fives. Yeah. So Custodes defensive, Custodes build, but the hit harder one. GSC, it's final day. It's very similar to the list that Tyler played in the stat rep that went up last month. Just piles of fucking gargoyles and lone ops and shitters. CK, it's 13 war doggies. Or is it 12 in demons, Alex? It was 13, right? Okay. And then Necrons, this is star shitter with some DDAs, the king, trash, Wraith Brick.
They had the Wraith Brick, yeah.
So overall, yeah, I mean, Orcs, GSC, and CK are all very scary for us. Especially on this mission we're about to play, right? Like Take and Hold, good for pressure armies that like board control. So those three armies are just going to be kind of scary for us, especially because our comp's a little bit more defensive and shooting oriented. Doubly, again, 4 of our 7 greens are my row. So that's really only going to translate into 1 green. So yes, this is actually a very scary matrix. What do we do here? Well, I want to keep some pins around to try to allow our more terrified people to escape, right? Like if they throw Necrons or GSE, I want to have Max around as an attacker to get him the fuck out of there as soon as possible. That's the primary one. Tanner also will be not a bad attacker to have around in case they throw like Orcs forward or CK. Honestly, getting a tie into CK is probably pretty fine. So the only person I don't think is like absolutely essential to a pin here is Nick. I believe we defend first with Nick here. Is that right? Or was it Matt? Or was
That's
it Max?
crazy.
Defended
There's
Max.
no way you first defend Nick here.
Yeah, we first defended Max.
Okay, interesting.
Because we knew that there's kind of no saving Max because he has like 3 bad matchups, and we're like we asked him, we're like, does board choice help? And he's like, board choice
right.
helps me make sure I don't get blown out.
Yeah.
So, yes. Yeah.
Totally fair.
And I remember they threw Orcs and CK at him, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, this is where we deliberated for a while about which one would be worse. Yes. Yeah, so Max defends first, mostly just to grab a good table and do a scary matchup because it's probably going to be scary for other people on our team. He ends up playing against Orcs to shore up our Death Watch down the road. And then their defender was Necrons. And we offered them Votan and
I think Tau?
Orcs? Tau? No, not Orcs. Yeah, it was
because
Votan
you were worried about it on their board. They could actually blunt you pretty well.
Yeah, for sure.
And you were like, I need a big win here. Like, especially because you were pretty good into CK and GSC and Custodes.
Yes, all of which we need help into. So honestly, getting our Necrons into Votan is a great way for our Votan to escape the scary 2 people that we have on there, right? Because Orcs are already gone. So honestly, not a terrible start, even though we're at -1, because Max is on his board. And then from there, I think what we do is, so who's left? Tanner, Lukas, and Alex. Does anyone remember what we did now?
I think we defend me for board choice now.
That makes sense to me.
I played Custodes on a GW board, and there's no way we didn't pick that.
It's board choice, and you're the only orange left on the board. Lucas is straight greens. Like, there's no way to defend with anyone else. Like, it's
That
just
sounds
Tanner.
correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. And they defended with CK, which meant that CK just played into a green. I just played into a green, and then Tau got to avoid their orange and picked Custodes. So again, considering the situation we were in, not bad to get 2 wins and a loss into these folks. So the matchups are Necrons into Votan, Orcs into Guard, Custodes into Tau, GSC into Orcs, and CK into Deathwatch. Alex, enjoy your up to 25th War Dog, by the way.
Yeah, I'll talk. Dear viewer, my nomenclature is a misnomer. My hammers tasted 0 alien blood all weekend. I was very sad. However, they beat the fuck out of Cogs. This is Night Army chocolate version to do the swirl. Lucky me, maybe a week ago, I had tested this into Lukas, who has played Chaos Knights, exact mission and layout. So I was informationally wise, I was aware that it is not a great green, but it is a green. As you saw from the previous round, if they just run at me, I cannot dig out that fast. This is also banners and take and hold. So they're going to have just like 8 points for free that I just can't really do anything about. Now, my position understanding that is that I was given a green. I should try and get the high point of that. I saw that opportunity occur when my opponent played. My opponent had tested into Deathwatch and knew that Deathwatch would just lawnmower whatever they put in front of me. So they played really defensively. And that was the mistake, I think, that cost them a lot of points, because he basically put 2 war dogs in each pocket, each half of the battlefield, and 1 in the middle. And I got to comfortably drop Terminators, and then behind Terminators, a kill team, shoot a dog. I killed 4 dogs, I think, turn 2, and then he killed not enough. It was biblically bad for my opponent, where like I would just roll an Overwatch and take out a dog. He would charge a carnivore into Terminators and not kill any, and then I would kill it with Terminators, which is just not good. Everything really was good for me. The play of the game for him was I shot Meltas at a war dog on his home objective that I was going to charge with a Judicar, and he took it on his armor saves, so it would die, so I couldn't charge it and take his home base away from him because he had sticky it. That was what he was doing.
That bad, huh?
It was that bad, dude. It was really, I think it was like 17 or something. It was 17-3, which felt really good for me after a weekend of like doing okay, pretty good. And we were really nervous this round, and we had to score more points than the people we just played who got the pair down. So walking away from this with the 17 really made me feel like I had performed what I done what I came here to do. Jake was a great opponent, though. I've played him a lot. It was just came down to him turn 1 kind of not pushing in the right way.
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about this round. This was the so I got to play Necron Star Shatter on their board, which was like, this is a little unfortunate, especially when I just said that I want to push as hard as I can. And so he picks the board with the Super L's, which is a very defensive board. It means that basically like we're fighting in 2 areas, and then those 2 areas are probably never interacting with each other the rest of the game, because he has tanks that can go through walls. Only one can go through a wall at a time. Also, like, I can put guys on the other side of the wall and be like, the king and the DDAs cannot fit here. The other
Also,
thing too
they
is
can only go through like 1 set of walls at a time. Like you don't get
Yeah.
to jump from one zone over to the other in one movement, no matter how fast you are.
Yep. Land fort as well. Once the land fort commits to one of the super L's, either defending my expansion or attacking his expansion, that's it. It's there for the rest of the game. So I was like, okay, let's position locking down my expansion, and then we'll just throw like Sagittars to go down to harass his expansion, because they can at least stand behind this wall on the Super L. And since they're small, they're a lot harder for him to like advance and shoot out. The issue with the Hecaton, it couldn't really stage defensively or aggressively, sorry, in the midfield, because he can just kind of wander a DD out and see it because the Hecaton's huge. So this game was unfortunately the 3rd game I had to go first. So it's like, okay, I want to fucking deny your primary and score bottom primary, but okay, I guess I'll just try to deny your primary every turn. It went pretty well. I just aggressively put like Hecaton and a Sagittar on my expansion, and I'm like, come on over here, the 10 Zerkers will rip apart whatever comes near me. Anyways, 10, I think 1 squad of Zerkers and another car went down to his expansion, and this was where I also strat reserved a car of Zerkers, so it has the option of either coming to reinforce my expansion at some point, or if he doesn't screen enough, it can actually attack his home field, or it can come to reinforce attacking his expansion. And it actually worked out quite well. So he puts the Wraith unit down to go like protect his expansion, and basically just says like, I'm not going to come, like neither of us can really go to the midfield because the board we were playing on had this like giant line through the middle of the board. He comes to the midfield, I just shred whatever's there with bikes. I go to the midfield, he shreds whatever's there with EDAs. This game was pretty funny. We had a turn 2 interaction where he puts his wraiths on his expansion, and I have bikes that then come in from off the board edge at the top of 2, and they just crank the lever on the wraiths. They pass him 22 autocannon saves, and we're both like, well, these wraiths are fucking dead. I think he makes like, I don't know, 80, 85% invulns or something, but then he feels like all his field events. So it only kills like 2.5 wraiths. And at this point, I'm like, well, normally, if he had like 1 survivor, I'd expect him to use the reactive move after getting shot to go behind the wall. But now he might reactive move onto the objective to secure his expansion. So I really hope he doesn't notice that. And he did that. I'm like, shit, dude. I had these Jaegers who turn 1 went and cleansed the middle. When Tomb Blades moved out to kill them for overwhelming, I rolled a 6 on my reactive move and they scurried back behind a wall and they couldn't get shot. And I'm like, let's go, Jaegers. They're down here on his expansion, but there's only 4 of them, and he has 3 raids, which is OC6 to my OC4. And he was smart with the reactive move, not getting closer to my bikes. So my bikes need a 9-inch charge. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go for the bike charge because the bikes aren't going to die to raids in melee, and they're all OC2. And I also just got 3 free CP because I killed some flayed ones turn 1. I roll the bike charge, fail it, CP reroll it, fail it. At this point, I'm like, fuck, man, these Jaegers got to go in now to flip his expansion. I think they managed to whittle off the half wraith with like grenades and revolvers. And I'm like, okay, so he's going to have like 3 raids, or I think it was like 2 raids at that time, or 3 raids. It was a lot of attacks that I was like, I don't think it's enough to kill my guys. So I'm going to go for it because I need to, like, this is 5 points. It's pretty big. The fucking heroic Jaegers go in. They shank a wraith to death. Don't die. Flip his expansion. This whole thing also, I forgot to mention this. When he reactive moved to my Jaegers, he goes, wait, can you reactive move my reactive move? And I'm like, well, is it a normal move? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you bet I can, buddy. So these Jaegers who had maybe like a 7-inch charge or now have like a 2-inch charge into his raids. It was very funny. They didn't roll enough on the reactive move to get enough on the objective, unfortunately. So that's why they had to go in. So these heroic Jaegers managed to flip his primary, which was the most exciting flip that happened down there. Because for the rest of the game, I just keep sending like Zerker Squad and Zerker Squad and Zerker Squad in. We eventually kill the raids. That's kind of the game. He sends the king to the middle at some point. I send the Zerkers into the middle. They don't actually kill the king because like they're wounding on 4s. He's saving on 4s. He's -1 damage because of, you know, Star Shatter. But they managed to like stop the king from scoring primary. So I hold him to a 5 every turn until bottom 5 where he gets 15 because he just wanders out because he's been playing pretty defensively. But I managed to get a 12-8 out of this game, which I was pretty happy with for going first on Super Hells into Star Shatter, playing mega defensively. So yeah, wish I could have gotten more, but pretty happy with how it worked out. Went in with a good game plan and felt like it was executed well.
Good stuff, man. Nice.
Nice work. Who else wants to talk about their games before I talk about the Tyranids exploding? Max, anything to say about the Orcs?
They're fun. Orcs are always a scary thing in my mind because, when I play into orcs, I'm mainly playing into you. So, orcs are always a really scary matchup, and I got to respect them, especially with guard. Alex is a great player. Really, really, really fun game that we had. I really wish I'd gone second. But aside from that, it felt good. I kept him, I think, to a 5 on his turn 5 primary, which felt good, even though he got to go second. But yeah, it was a fun game. I enjoy orcs into guard. It's a classic.
You got 9 points out of this, right?
I did, yeah. I got 25 primary to his 35, and then we both maxed our secondaries. Yeah, not bad.
Max was a hero this round, dude.
Yep.
This is what you want to see from your blunters.
Yes. Yeah, this, like, I was talking at the beginning about one of your blunters gets let off the leash, right? Like round 1, Nick bodied Admech. Round 2, Tanner bodied Slanesh. Round 4, Alex bodied CK. Max never truly got that like body moment, but in multiple shitty situations, he like overperformed and got a tie where he should have gotten a loss. And that's just as important. So very well done.
That's what guard are good at.
Yes, sir. Yeah, my game in a GC was really fun. I just a quick shout out for Evan. I'm not gonna like super deep dive this game, but I did want to shout him out because he was a like literal last second, couple days before the guy who was supposed to be playing GSC like got sick or something and couldn't come to the event. So they had to call this guy up. He goes to the Boise State University of Idaho, Boise, whatever. He's in Idaho. He flew here like 2 days before the event, they planned all of this to play final day GSC, an army he had never played before. So
Holy
this dude,
shit.
yeah, this dude kicked ass. And yeah, this game wasn't like the most interesting thing in the world. It was kind of just like me generally applying pressure toward him, rolling past him. But he came in with a very solid game plan that I really wanted to shout out. His whole shtick was like he like, I want to flip your expansion once and the middle once. That will hold you to 45 primary. I'm going to focus on holding my home field and trying as hard as I damn can to hold my expansion. And rather than trying to spend my CP like killing you or doing all sorts of fancy plays, he just tried to cycle like as many cards as humanly possible. And this was like more than any person I played this weekend. He understood that his role was to try to keep my score as low as possible. And I think the Deep Strike gang, because Evan and Sean are brothers, they kind of had, shared some information that like just trying to hold the tactical down is all you really need to do. And he had a fantastic game plan for it, far better than any of the other people I played this weekend. And he was the person that scored the most points into me. So, really cool to see that team's mindset of like, I don't have to win the game. I don't have to fight my opponent everywhere. I'm just going to try to hold on to my expansion and score what I can, rather than like futilely trying to score an 8 and you score a 1 instead. So yeah, big props to Evan. He did an amazing job considering the bad matchup he was in.
All right, sounds like that's it for that round, yeah?
Yeah, so take us through the final scores, Mr. T.
Yeah, nicely done, boys. At the end of the day, Mr. Pena ends up with his 17 in 3 win. Lukas ends up with a 16-4 win. Max, as we said, the hero of the Imperium, holds it down with a 9 into the Orcs. Tanner comes back with a 7 against the Custodes, and Nick comes back with that good unleashed 12-8 against the Star Shatter on the Super Elves for a final round score of 61-39. A very comfortable win to top off the event.
Let's go.
Yeah,
And
this is where it gets funny. So Deep Strike Gang goes on to win their round as well. So we're both 3-0-1. All right, goes to the next tiebreaker, which is game wins. Both teams have 14.5 game wins. Shit. Then it goes down to points scored. They get, I think, 257 points. We get 256 points. And that's it. Yippee!
I thought it
Oh,
was
man.
funny.
It was
Not in a
Something.
ha-ha way, more of like a cosmic way. It was pretty funny.
Couldn't have happened to a cooler group of dudes.
Yeah.
very true.
So mega sad in the moment.
Well, did any of you get any 20s over the course of the weekend? Nope. Every single one of you is equally responsible for this massive failure, and I'm disappointed in all of you equally.
True.
I mean, that was one of the big
Too true.
because immediately everyone was like, guys, I'm sorry I messed up. And it's like, no, like, think back on your games. At any point in any of our games, any one of us could have done something to score one more point. And that's like a harsh way to learn that lesson. Like literally losing the tournament by 1 point because like we would have won on the next tiebreaker, right?
What was the next tiebreaker?
The next tiebreaker was match point strength of schedule. So yeah, we had a slightly tougher strength of schedule, but it seems right. Yeah, my point was it at least for me, like when I first went to a teams event back in Las Vegas teams of like 2022. That was like the big shift like in mentality where like when someone started running their characters away from me and I'm like, you're losing the game. What are you doing? And they're like, well, I don't want to give you assassinate. I don't want you to beat me by more. And I'm like, oh, that's how you play this. Like, this is so different. Any one of us could have pushed for that point a little more. Like, I feel like in singles, there's a little bit of like, I'm winning. I'll like let off the gas, not in teams. Like, you let off the gas could cost you the tournament,
Yeah, man. you guys have some reflections after the event? Things you would have done differently next time and whatnot?
I can start.
I get to play with the new codex. I'm just saying, I had a new detachment. That was pretty fun. 280 guardsmen running at you with stealth and all that stuff. I'm just saying, that seems like a pretty good teams list.
I think for me, I would have pushed on the gas a bit more. Like, I knew my role on the team was to be a blunter. But like our hunters came back with such big wins that I think I could have afforded to like bounce off of a push, and the upside of pushing would have been like so much higher. Like in rounds 2 and rounds 3, I think like I should have just played like a lot more aggressively. And okay, maybe there's a world where I come back and I'm like, sorry guys, I got an 8, but like it wouldn't have mattered in either of those rounds, So that was a good lesson to learn. Definitely tried to apply that round 4.
I think for me, it's a 2-part thing. The first part is kind of growing as a player that's gone from just being a very defensive player into kind of trying to be more aggressively oriented, is to understand that at the worst case scenario, you're going to hit your matrix no matter what. So you're like identifying positions where you can push really hard. And if you bounce, you can still, project what you were going to. And then secondly, going back to like playing Deathwatch gives me, in hindsight, I didn't really identify this until like we said, round 3. I can use the clock in a very excessive way because I'm activating 11 units at a time. Like it's not a very time-consuming army, and I'm not a very slow player in so much that I have to worry about that. So I think in hindsight, and it's also a very toolboxy army that can just try and bomb 9-inch charges and get the game going. So in hindsight, I think maybe I slow down the tempo of the game a little bit and try and see if I can be the super glue to a matrix if it needs to be.
I hate to say it for all the Tau boys. I don't think Tau was a good 5-man's choice. I loved my army. I'm pretty good at it. It takes a long fucking time to play, so the info comes in late in the rounds, and it's pretty big commit off the turn 1. And I think it would be fine in 8s, perhaps. I think I became a bit of a pairings problem, where it was hard to safely project when the infiltrate and go first were really relevant, and I had to commit to the playstyle super hard out of the gate. As much as it was good when it was good, it was bad when it was bad, and I probably could have just played like Renegade Raiders and gotten basically all the same upside or something. So
Slanesh Demons, you think, is another option potentially?
yeah, there were other ways to aggress where you take advantage of being like stuck with the go first in that meta that was so go second, and it might have been a touch too cute. We had the World Eaters issue and the CK issue that we ran into in pairings. Like we navigated it really well, and I think it was awesome that out of all the scary matrices, we came out with like as good as we could get. But that is something that is a little bit more on us having really accurate information, and the other teams maybe not having ran as much matrix. That's we control what we could control there. But the other teams had agency that they didn't maybe leverage as well as they could have. And it could have been a much bigger problem, and it was already a bit of a problem. So I think I got a little too cute with that one. As my personal takeaway there.
Yeah, as fun as it was to have just the gun comp on the gun tables, having, 2 to 3 people per round utterly shitting their pants at the thought of running into 15 World Leader possessed dudes was just like, oh my God, there are shortcomings to this comp. There were like in that first round, it was basically just World Leaders we were scared of. So like all the other armies felt great for us to run into, but just those, like, we didn't play into any bile over the weekend. I think bile would have been a huge issue for our comp, right? Just like a wall of meat pressing in and like hemming us in and scoring all the points would have been just horrific. So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from there. With respect to Bonka, like in theory, the pin of like the aggro rush armies is nice between Votann and Tau, but like I just don't think Votann are doing that. Whereas Bonka, that's all they are doing, right? That is the primary game plan, and Votann can always fall back on MSU scoring points, flipping objectives. Tau don't have a lot of fodder to do that with, right?
Agreed.
Like their action units are the ones that you want to be in a certain position to guide. So if they have to do that, then they might not do containment or whatever.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't have that points fallback floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pen idea that we built around, I think, worked really well, especially when we got to leverage it. The idea of having overlapping pens at an archetypal level so you have a similar dynamic that's always present, I think is really strong. I think that what we found a lot of the times in pairings was hitting the round 3 scrum RNG moment where we're like, did they put out the thing that is scary or nah? We got the nah a couple times, and we definitely set ourselves up for that as best as possible. But the same reasons that we didn't like Solar and GK for being somewhat tough to predict very accurate scores with, I think specifically in fives, the more you can avoid that variance when you're projecting your pairings, like that's a disproportionately better thing to have. Like higher upside, maybe in eights when you're going to have a bunch of ties is more valuable. If we just had like 4 sure tens, I think that would have been more useful in this instance.
Absolutely agree.
Yep.
I think it was fascinating, the skill that comes with accurate matrixing and how it can bite you in the ass at the end of the tournament. I think a lot of our opponents, after every round, I would go up to them and ask their thoughts in the round and such. And a lot of them were like, oh, we thought X was going to be so good, and we thought Y was all greens. And it was so interesting that after pairings and stuff, both teams can walk away and we're like, wow, we killed that. This is going to go so well for us. And then ultimately at the end of the round, somebody has to be like, oh, fuck, we completely biffed that. And I don't know. I think I'm talking a lot about the fundamentals of teams, but it is super fascinating to see. Because there are some teams where the caliber of the players were very good, but the team's experience and the amount of times they've been to teams' events was so low that, you know, even just matrixing a little wonky can cost you the whole round.
Yeah, because the thing about having a green in the matrix is your pairings people seek it out, right? And if you seek out a green or a blue or something good, and it's the opposite, you've just done your opponent's work for them. So having good data in your matrix is essential. If you don't have it, it's a fucking disaster.
I thought it was interesting how many of my opponents were like, Deathwatch was super bad for me. And I was like, I didn't think it was that bad for you at all in testing, but I don't know if there's any way you can use that data at all post-hand. But it's just interesting. This is more because I'm a Deathwatch fanboy. It's cool to see that this is an army in the meta that's actually taking, like, people have to respect it. And I don't know if it's going to continue in the team's environment. I had a lot of fun with it, and it kind of played catcher's mitt for a lot of the bad armies no one else wanted to play. But I don't know if that can still serve maybe like a more streamlined comp.
Can you comment on how good your army is versus how bad it looks when you just put it on a table?
Yeah, it is like 4 bricks that will like solo 2,000 points of your opponent's army. My kind of whole thing this weekend was like, don't put me into any dudes in cars list. I will probably lose. Where it's like, if they can just 2-for-1 me or 3-for-1 me, or if I have to dig them out, then I can't push. And that became kind of a problem where we'd see like, don't put me into guard, don't put me into things like that, where it's like, if you have boxes, I can't really score that high because I just don't have enough activation chips to be like, blow up all your rhinos and then kill the juicy things inside, unless I bomb irresponsible 9-inch charges, which I love to do. But
That's
it's
a
not
pretty common loyalist marine problem. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
oh, fuck, boxes. I'm going to expose my expensive units, pop your boxes, and the things in the boxes are going to kill me back or out OC me.
Yeah, but if you're playing against Blood Angels with a bunch of like Terminator equivalents, or you're playing against War Leaders, any 3-wound asshole elite army, it feels awesome. It feels great. Yeah, and I think there is a world where Deathwatch can be a Space Marine army, but the Space Marine army selection is so competitive right now. Yeah. I'm excited for Sisters to get a little bit of love. Any amount of love. Same with these sons, but you know.
Good luck, dude.
Yeah, boo.
-1
Boo to
miracle
that
dice.
take. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I want my army to be playable again. Boo.
I want T-Sons to get a rework, dude. Hopefully that book will rework them, right?
Oh, I also have a question for Lucas. Lucas, now that you have matrixed into 20 armies, how do you think tactical is on like a fair, like better, kind of busted? Where would you rank its power level?
It's definitely too good. Yeah, there's some shit in this detachment that is pretty fucked up.
But it's not Bridgehead.
It is not Bridgehead, I guess. Yes.
At one point you mentioned you're like, you said something like, I think I've had 18 greens this tournament.
No, look through it. We can look through it now. 4 greens and a flip. 3 greens basically in a flip. 3 greens in 1 bad matchup. 4 greens.
Chris mute.
Hey, Chris mute.
So that's what,
What's
like
up?
15
You're
greens
right.
here?
Yeah.
14
It was
greens out of
incredible
20.
to have in pairings an army that was good into almost everything with a huge amount of upside and like very controllable loss conditions.
Yes, this is what's so insane, and why I think Orcs belongs in literally every team comp. You don't even have to play tactical, right? Like different detachments can do different things. If you want to have a specific type of hunter, you can play Warhorde or Green Tide. It will be a lot more volatile than this, but tactical just has a sea of greens and purples that all have upside, and there's like 1 or 2 bad matchups in the entire game, and that's what's so ridiculous about it. It's just like there's really nothing that you can pin tactical with unless you have like all 3 of the bad matchups, and not all those armies are good. So
Sounds like one of us needs to learn Orcs by May, dude.
you're
From the
welcome.
captain seat and Chris's coaching seat, after we'd played that tournament, what do you guys think we missed in team construction? Like we've all talked about our own, like what we do better, what we'd exploit better. What was a big miss?
We had 1.5 melee armies, which made navigating things a little bit hard. I think we kind of touched on that already.
What melee army? What?
I have Thunderhammers. That's it. And then Lucas is Lucas.
I do some melee.
He's got Orcs. Orcs hit things.
I think we missed out on GSC.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think GSC is an utterly fantastic blunter with a lot of upside.
Totally.
As long as we
I think
don't play
we could
like
have played Brood Brothers or something.
Oh,
Yep.
fuck
Strong,
off with that. I
big
was just
agree,
about to
yeah.
say not Brood Brothers or Outlander Claw. Fuck off, you guys.
Outlander is unironically a great army. Like
Yeah, it's
I think
You're
I think
It
solid.
was Brood Brothers.
I do think that Final and Biosynctic can push for bigger scores than Outlander.
Yeah.
Yes.
Final Day is genuinely so fucking sick.
The change
that's
to
the
how
best
they
one.
respawn units is really nice, though. Like, Tim and I were talking about it during our game with GSC, and it was just like, oh, we can both plan around this. That's so cool. I love this change.
Yep. Sick. Shall we do some is it question time?
Yeah, let's take a look here. We got 2 different questions coming in from the Discord. And again, if you'd like to ask questions on future shows or just keep the conversation going, you can head over to patreon.com/statcheck, as linked in the description here as well, to join our Discord for $5 a month, where you can ask us questions there. Question number 1 asked, and this comes from Snackback 180 James. What was the single biggest miss in your pairings or matrix you found during the event?
Well,
Gotta be Mike.
As far as pairings go, it seems like it's
we got a
Tanner
green
into the
flip.
card.
And I would not rate it green after the matchup, so that's got to be a miss.
Sounds about all right to me. And it seems like the pairings went basically as you guys wanted them all the time, so really just a matrixing issue more than a pairings problem.
yeah, I think pairings went pretty well.
Cool beans. And then Jeff asks, do you see team events as growing to the point of being more common than singles events long term?
No.
I don't
They're
think so,
so
just because it's
much-
hard to get a team together versus a single. Like, I mean, even getting a 5-man together was tough, and like getting an 8-man together was also tough. and just getting enough space and tables and terrain. There's running a teams event. There's more that goes into it than running a singles event, and so I think a lot more TOs have that capacity to run singles. Like you can run a nice singles GT at an LGS versus a teams event. You need a pretty large venue. There's a lot more stuff that goes into it, I'd say.
Yep.
Now, not growing past singles, but growing, we are having another 5-man that James is running in May. John and Alex are running another teams this year. Like, we are seeing a lot of teams growth regionally. They definitely won't be passing singles, but it sure looks like 2026 will have at least like a quarterly teams event to attend locally, which is pretty incredible.
Yep. And on like a larger scale too, what is it? Challengers now? Like people are hyped about that
sold
event.
out with 80 teams, 640 players,
like, and they're
several months in advance.
Other countries too, like people are excited about teams, but it is like an event. Like you are prepping your roster, you are prepping your lists, you are putting in practice like weeks, months beforehand. So there's going to be a lot more energy and time going into it. So it's like if there's a team event every single month, well, teams are going to have to pick like maybe 2 or 3 to attend that year that they actually want to go to. So they're not going to be as popular as singles because they're definitely like being a button to each other's spaces if they start popping up all over the place.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Sweet. And that's all we've got out of the Discord there. We'd like to take this time again to thank some of the rest of our sponsors. You can check out down in the description below on YouTube or on your podcast as a player of choice. As a reminder, we do stream live on YouTube roughly on the weekends. Sometimes try to put it up long enough in advance that you can know what's going on. But go ahead and check out the meta dashboard and whatnot. If you're interested in keeping the conversation going, head over to that Patreon Discord. If you want some more one-on-one, a little bit of more personalized help, you can go over to stat-check.com/coaching, where myself, Lukas, Nick, and a variety of other stat check coaches are available at your service. We've got some merch available. And then we'd like to thank our sponsors as always, Red Dragon, Saltire Games, Wayland Yutani Terrain, and J15 Games, all of whom are linked in the description with a couple of discount codes for patrons, or some of them not actually. So have a look at that as well. So Data Slate is coming out this week. Look forward to a show about it. I'm sure lots of shows from the Stat Check situation. We're all very excited to see things turned upside down. Anything else you guys want to mention from the team event before we sign off for the week?
SAG down 10 points.
I would love for Melee Sisters to be playable at any point in 10th edition. That'd be kind of cool.
No, you get 1 week pre-codex. Fuck you.
Bummer.
If James's event isn't sold out, it should be. We're playing teams again in May. You can meet 80% of it's 5 out of 6. 83% of our team there will be back. You won't get to play Lukas, so Menlin, you can show up and be less scared than before. But we should populate it. If you are regional guys, come support teams. It's really cool. It's by far the most fun way to play Warhammer. Everyone's been saying it forever. Come do it.
Be not afraid.
Nick, do you have the name of that by any chance, considering you've registered us?
Yeah, also pay me, please. It's called Throwdown at the Campground. Yeah, that's the name of the event. It is May 10th and 11th.
Is it taking place outdoors at a campground?
It's taking place at a campground. It's inside at like a cabin.
Okay. Sure.
Whatever main cabin at the campground, but it is at a campground.
Think like Boy Scout Lodge.
Yeah, you can stay on site, dude. You can walk from your bunk to the event and then back to your bunk.
More like crawl.
That's pretty slick.
Cabins. The cost for staying overnight is incredibly competitive. It is going to be a good time.
I would go and then not even play a game of 40K. But if there was just 140K nerds at a fucking bonfire, I'm there. It's all upside. You get to 40K. Yeah.
All right. Sweet.
Yeah. Well,
I hope they run another one of those when I'm back in town. That's great. Jesus.
Camping is awesome.
PNW 40K eating good, dude.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
I just got like one last thing. Just big shout out to everyone on this team. Lukas did a fantastic job, rallying us together and keeping us in line. And Chris coming and coaching, like a coach was invaluable. Having someone we could communicate information to between rounds, and also just being there as like someone.
Chris, you did a great job, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Word to the wise. Day one, showing up and saying no other coach, I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? And then at the end of it, I'm like, man, these guys slept on me being the sixth person. Yeah. Bring a bud. Bring a guy to give you and your opponents beers and words.
Keep us fueled with Dr. Peppy, dude.
Yeah, I brought a cooler full of Pacific Cooler, Capri Suns, Red 40 beverages, energy drinks, the goods. Classic Americana fare. It was phenomenal. Very great.
Yeah. So, I mean, this event got me really excited about 40K again. So it was a real blast to play with you guys.
Rose City Ruffians undefeated after 2 tournaments. Keep the train going,
So true. 6-0-4.
6-0-4, baby.
6-0-4. Incredible.
Don't question it. Jesus Christ. All right. Well, with that all being said and done, thank you so much for joining us as always. I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
I've been Lukas.
We got a bunch of other sort of guests here. It's been Alex, Chris, Max, and Tanner. Thank you again. We will see you in the future in the wild world of a new slate and a fresh meta. We can't wait to see it. Check out some other stuff we offer until then. Take care, everyone.
Stag down 10 points. Beesnaga boys +1 attack. Breaker boys +2 attacks. Tank +3 up armor save base. Truck down to 50 points.
Sisters -2 miracle dice per turn.
Tarok's going up to 70 points, or maybe 75. That's my bet.
-1 the wound goes away. -1 the wound oath goes away.